You can kind of look at the city council if you're still there.
Like a fashion style.
Recording.
That's cool.
Michael and Naomi at 6 p.m. Are you ready to go?
Yes, we are, Mayor.
Thank you.
I will call the May 25th, 2021 regular meeting of the Mill Creek City Council to order. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Councilmember Bond, would you lead us tonight?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Naomi, roll call, please.
Yes, Mayor Holtzclaw,
President.
Mayor Pro Tem Vanel,
Here.
Councilmember Bond.
Here.
Councilmember Cavallari,
Here.
Councilmember Steckler,
Here, and I think we have an extra mic on it.
Councilmember Briles,
Present.
Councilmember Morgan.
Here.
Thank you, Naomi. We have one mic. We're getting a reverberation somewhere. Is that what it is? Just for the record, you're 7 fully vaccinated council members who come to you from Mill Creek City Hall separated by plexiglass and 20 feet removed from our city manager, who is the only other person in council chambers with us this evening as of now. So we will begin with audience communication. Would anyone like to speak to the council? I see Barbara's hand up. Start with Barbara, and you know the drill, name and address, and please keep it to 3 minutes. Naomi, are you gonna unmute?
I am. Thank you for your patience. We do have quite a few today. Thank you.
There you go.
Barb, you should be able to unmute now.
Okay. Barb Heidel, 1401 144th Place Southeast, Mill Creek. Thank you, Mayor. As many of you know, I keep on reading the governance manual to make sure it's okay. And I have a request for 2 more items to be fixed before it is
Barb, I did pass your email along to the city attorney.
and some of them were fixed.
Okay.
Some were fixed, but when I checked it this afternoon, late this afternoon, there was still 2 that needed to be fixed. So I'm going to mention them for record. Okay. Article 7.4.2A. 4th line, not the 3rd line. The 3rd line, the word staff is not to be capitalized. On the 4th line, the word staff is at the beginning of the sentence. That's the one that needs to be capitalized. And then I had a question about on page 29 of the governance manual. I've got the abbreviation, proper something. It's on page 29, the initiative, new initiative. I didn't understand that there was a couple sentences there. It didn't make sense to me. I didn't know if it needed a comma after council on the 2nd line. There was something that needs to be fixed. It does not make sense to me. And I like things to make sense. And it had been rewritten and reconfigured, and it had a bunch of words removed, and now it doesn't make sense. So I just want to make sure that you've read it and it makes sense to you. Okay, so it's on page 29 under the new initiative thing. And it's about an opportunity to propose topics for council. And it sounded odd because it was for council meetings, or was it in my email? I explained to Naomi and to Michael, I believe it was, city manager, that it just didn't make sense. And I gave a couple of different options. So thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Barb. Ms. Callahan, name and address, and please keep your comments to 3 minutes. We'll unmute you momentarily.
Hi, my name is Janet Callahan. My address is 14826 66th Avenue West in Edmonds, Washington. I'm a representative of the Alzheimer's Association, and I'm actually talking on behalf of our volunteer committee member, Shauna Stanley, who's a Mill Creek resident. So what we are asking for is we've put in front of the Mill Creek City Council proclamation, which is declaring that June 20th, summer solstice, be declared the longest day in honor of the 120,000 individuals in Washington state living with Alzheimer's. June is also Alzheimer's and Brain Awareness Month. I don't think I need to remind anybody on this phone that the impact that Alzheimer's has on our community, that there's presently nothing you can take that will prevent Alzheimer's from developing. And once Alzheimer's has started, there is no cure for it. Our Alzheimer's Association, and during the longest day, we want to shine a light on those people that are living with Alzheimer's and the 295,000 people like my dad, who is now 89 years old and taking care of my mother with Alzheimer's. So we submit the proclamation to you, and we would be pleased if Mill Creek would support us.
Thank you, Ms. Callahan.
Thank you.
Would anyone else like to address the council tonight? Going once, twice? There'll be another opportunity at the end of the meeting. We'll move on to item C, update of development activity. Looks like Tom Rogers and Christie.
Thank you, Mayor. Just by way of a real quick introduction, this continues in our administrative team's ongoing efforts to bring council up to speed. As a recapture for many of you and possibly hearing about these exciting development projects for the first time. And we will continue to provide these overviews across all of our departments. Up tonight is an inventory relating to all the development activity that our planning department is working on. So with that, I'll turn the tables over to Mr. Tom Rogers, our planning manager, and Ms. Christy Schmidt, our senior planner.
We can't hear you, Tom.
No.
You may have to just hit the microphone under the Zoom toolbar and change your settings in the microphone.
So while he's checking his voice, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, that's perfect.
Yay.
Thank
Yes.
you.
Okay, great. Okay, so this meeting tonight is basically the staff fulfilling a promise that we made a few weeks ago when I made a presentation to you about what's going on in the Development Services division. And I spent most of my time talking about the structure of the department and the kind of permits review, why we review them, the kind of revenues we generated, doing inspections, things like that. And it was more of a lot of numbers, and it wasn't very exciting because it didn't have very many pictures. It was all text. And just before the meeting, we kind of realized, so we made the promise that we would come back later with a presentation that Christy would do for us, Christy Schmidt, senior planner. And what this does is this is sort of what my presentation means actually out in the real world. These are the permits that are being constructed or being initiated right now, the things that are coming up out of the ground. And so Christy has, that's her job during the pandemic. She's been spending a lot of time actually in the city, even though I've been working remotely, mostly at home. She's been out in the city, driving around and staying on the sites and keeping an eye on what's going on, making sure all the conditions that the hearing examiner put on those permits is being adhered to. And so she's taken a lot of pictures, and she's going to give you sort of a tour here on Zoom of the things that are coming out of the ground here in Mill Creek. So, and she'll be able to answer questions, and Mike and I will fill in as necessary, but I think that most of the talking from now on will be from Christy. So Christy, go ahead.
All right. Well, thank you, Tom. I appreciate that introduction. And tonight, like Tom said, we're going on a visual tour of what you see driving around the city. So I'm going to share my screen here. Going to take a look at what's going on. I'm going to move to full presentation mode. And I just want to do a verbal check. Does everyone see my screen? Whoops.
Yep.
I'm there. All right. So tonight, some of you had already seen this in your packet. We have 5 items we're going to cover. They're listed up here on the screen. It's basically a visual tour of what's going on and around the city and what we've been doing. We are extremely busy in our department, and there's some market factors as to why we have a lot of permits. At the end of April, Tom gave you a good overview about how the building permit activity is higher than normal. And some of these reasons are, you'll notice that land value has increased. Market improvements are very popular right now, and it's a seller's market. And part of this is basically the fact that we have population demands where people need housing. And also because of the global epidemic with COVID-19, we're seeing people being quarantined in their house. And this is having a social, and it's also having an effect on the building departments. Every city, every jurisdiction is experiencing this. Mill Creek is not unique. And I don't know about you, but me, I'm sitting at home right now, and I can tell you, I have done what everybody else is doing. You take a personal assessment of your house, not only the inside environment, but also the outside environment. And a lot of people are realizing, well, gosh, I need a new deck, or wow, I think I need another bedroom, a home office, my kitchen. Nah, it's not really up to par. I'd like to do a full kitchen remodel or add in a bath. So we're seeing a lot of that. And as Tom explained, this is translated into permit activity. So what I've done here is I've put together your typical average residential home. This may look like a house in Mill Creek. What does this really result in? It averages out to about 5 building permits, which Tom is having the pleasure now of experiencing and processing in our department. And we do have a new building permit coordinator. These building permits average about 20 inspections for our building inspector and our building official. The fee translation is an average of about $4,400. However, when you take this to a commercial building permit level, it magnifies, it increases. So I took a building, one of the smaller ones at the farm at Mill Creek. This has ground floor commercial and 4 stories of residential above it. Surprisingly, it's only an average of 6 building permits total. However, the average inspection, take a look at that, 99, and it's not even done yet. Some of the larger buildings, they're over 200 currently. So the fees generated by this one particular building, it's about $43,000. It's a lot of money. So taking a look at the numbers, these are the same numbers. I do want to do the comparison that these have not been updated since the end of April. That way you just get an idea of what's going on. As Tom had noted, tracking from last year at the first quarter, 2020, you can see in red for 2021, we're above even last year. And this is with COVID. And the reason being are some of those factors that I explained to you previously. Our inspection levels are high, we're out and about, and there's 9 construction projects, and we have 4 in the pipeline also. We're keeping busy here. And in addition, let's take a look at some real of the activity out here. If you haven't had the opportunity to drive around town, here's a popular project. This is one that's actually located, it's south of the farm, and it's on the east side of 35th. And it's just north of the Pacific Topsoils Garden Nursery site. You might be familiar with it. And right now it's chain linked off with the green visqueen fencing. They're in the process. They've pulled their building permits, but the site is about 1.26 acres. And what's going to be going on this site? There's going to be 10 townhomes. They have parking. As you can see here, let's see, I might change my pointer. We're going to switch pointer options here. So hopefully you can see this a little bit better. We have the bouncing red ball. It does have a private access road. This is emergency access only. So this is what your design review board, they're required, because this is a quote unquote attached type product. They are for sale townhomes, but the design review board reviewed and approved the building exteriors along with the landscaping. So this is an example of the threeplex that will be constructed out there. This is what the site looks like right now. I just thought I'd show you. They have their hard surface down. They have their fire flow and their hydrants all active. So you'll start seeing vertical activity here soon, which means they'll start with the foundations and you'll see construction activity. Here's the pathway that connects to the farm at Mill Creek, and it also connects to the neighborhoods in the back, the Bluegrass Meadows. This is a very popular walkway. The farm will have the connection there. The reason why the sidewalk here is a bit wider is because this is intended and required by the Everett School District to have a school bus stop here for the kids to wait on. So this brings us to a project that you're probably all very familiar with, the farm at Mill Creek. The full site here is outlined in red. It's 17 acres, but only about 13.5 of it is actually being constructed and developed. The remaining 4 acres is a wetland mitigation site on site. And as you can see here, the off-site mitigation site, which is very popular already, I noted it in green just so you can see the relation between the actual farm project and the off-site mitigation site. And then the townhome property that I was just showing you, they are actually right here on this little lot here. So you can see how they'll all interconnect. It's going to be actually really great when they're done. So the farm at Mill Creek, just to give a recap here, there's 14 buildings that are constructed currently at this time. It will be providing the city with an additional 100,000 square feet of commercial, including office workspace units, which are very popular right now. We have around 350 residential units and approximately 1,200 parking stalls out there. Let's take a look at some of the elevations you may not have seen if you don't follow the design review board, but I put this particular building in because I find it very exciting. It's the largest building I've ever reviewed or approved. It's about 660 feet long, so it's very long. And our design review board lends their expertise in working with staff and also the architect. It has been designed to break up the facade. I realize when you look at it here, you can't see the dimensions and the textures, but when you're out there on the ground, they did a really great job breaking up the building. And we do give them a shout out for all the meetings that they've held. Last year, I think they met, last year and the year before, 14 or 16 times. And they had, gosh, I'm trying to think, around 18 projects they looked at. So they're a very busy board and they lend a critical role to the city and what actually gets built. This is the south end of Building E. It has a parking garage underneath. I just wanted to show you that. And there's also parking on the side. They have separate garage units over here to the south. And the project will be opening this summer. They are ahead of schedule by about 3 months. So they're working hard to wrap up out there. And if you've noticed, if you drove by the past week or so, they are working on the frontage also. So here is one of the many plazas within the farm. This area is intended to be used by these 2 commercial freestanding buildings. We've heard rumor, not official yet, but hopefully we're getting in some activities such as a winery, a distillery, and there's interest with some restaurants out here. So this will be a nice gathering place for the public. And this is Building D that I provided the recap on as far as the permits and the $43,000 in permit revenue. That's the building I was referring to. These are the 2 buildings here on the side of the plaza. And then this is the intersection at 39th that's been activated. And the bus shelter's also been installed out there on 32nd Street. 132nd Street, excuse me. So we are getting some new office space. This particular project, Creekside Office Space 2, it's located, I'll call it, it's tucked down in our business area on 9th Avenue. So I'd like to point out this is QFC. We have Elliott Bay Pizza up here. So if you were to come down here to the boardwalk, this is Creekside Phase 1. This was Tom Rogers' project, actually, quite a while ago. And a new owner has picked up these 2 buildings. And this particular project here, Phase 2, they're only developing this little bubbled area. The rest of the area is going to be preserved. It's a wetland area and a buffer for the creek. So what's going in on this little tiny site? Here it is right here. You can see the creeks that run through here, just to give you a different view. It's a tiny site, about 3 acres. So here you go. Here's the binding site plan that was approved several years ago. It's actually going to be a 3-story building. They have a great design in there and an elevator, and they do have shared parking with the office building in Phase 1. So they will have a connected lot and a shared access agreement. Here's an elevation of one of the sides. This is actually the side that would face 9th Avenue. It's a very modern building. I would like to point out there is landscaping in front of it. This is just the elevation so you can see the materials, but there will be layers in front of it with landscaping and pots. This is the north side that you would see when you drive down 9th Avenue. This is a picture of the site. They do have a coming soon lease building. They're projected to start work within the next month or 2. We're working on wrapping up finals, the civil finals, and also getting their contractors so we can hold a pre-construction meeting for them. So here we go, a project that a lot of people are excited about, kind of a little jewel in the city of Mill Creek. This is 58 acres. A lot of people refer to it as the old Pacific topsoil site. It's the mitigation site that was approved by Department of Ecology. It is protected. So it is actually, the whole area is a native growth protection area. Passive uses is what's permitted in there. So in other words, no motorized vehicles, no bicycles. It's meant walking only. It's actually a habitat protection area also. So walk through, enjoy. There is interpretive signage that has been installed in this area. The developer, they have a final inspection coming up in the next week, and we do hope the area will be open this summer for the public. And more to come on this. We'll be back to the city council. As you do know, there are certain requirements in the development agreement that do require the developer to provide dedication options to the city council. And that's supposed to occur within 5 years of completion of the wetland mitigation, which hopefully will be next week. So please stay tuned for this. We'll be back.
Hey, Christy?
Yes.
Just to want to be really clear is that this is still, that while there are people that are quote unquote trespassing and walking in it now, that it's not technically open to the public. And once it is, staff will be reaching out to various boards or council members or whoever would like to, and we would be happy to walk you through it. But right now, we haven't made that invitation yet because it's not technically open. So I just wanted to be clear about that, despite what you might see going on out there. But it is private property. It's not the city's property at this time. And so we're waiting until it's technically open.
Correct.
Okay.
And so you will see a locked gate out there, and it is locked, and it will remain locked until you actually see an announcement that it's open to the public. So moving forward, something you might not be aware about if you do not go to Central Market a lot, but they are completely remodeling the front 2 areas, which includes the indoor-outdoor dining area, which is a focal point over by the Starbucks. And in addition, they're going to be rebranding Town and Country, just like the rest of the stores. So you'll be seeing the whole facade change here. Most of the work right now is being done on the inside. You do see the boards on the front. We have a wonderful firm that we use, Safe Built, our building official. They have coordinated with Central Market, and they do all the inspections before the grocery store opens up in the morning. So not to inconvenience the grocers. And you will see they have been rapidly working to fill market demand for the online grocery ordering. This is very popular. I know my daughter works at one, and let me tell you, they are hopping. You'll see the parking stalls for the grocery fulfillment over here. They're special designated stalls. They've been put up. Here is what it looked like pre-remodel. And this is what it's gonna look like afterwards. They're really vamping it up to make an attractive area that's comfortable for people to eat, not just during the winter, but in the summer too. They plan to have open windows that pass through here, seating out front with a vegetative barrier to make it comfortable and quiet between the parking lot. And here's another look at part of the inside. This is what it looks like when you drive by. At least that's what it looked like last week. It's changed a little bit. So moving forward to another project, McDonald's, our second McDonald's in the city. This is the one on the corner of Bothell Everett Highway and 164th. It was originally constructed back in the 80s. It was remodeled in the 1990s. And now in July, you will see it completely demolished, and they are moving forward with their new model. They will be installing a dual drive-through. This is what it currently looks like now. You can see how busy they pretty much always are. They're swamped. So they're updating the restaurant to meet current demand and technology and to fit the needs of the community and what the market wants. So these are the elevations that were approved by the city's design review board. You can see they're completely modernizing the outside. LED lighting. This is the front elevation. And with that, we've just traveled to the next project. So now we're moving on to Crestview Phase 2. This is a single family plat. They are working rapidly to finish up the homes. Most of them have been pre-sold already. So this particular plat is located east of Lowe's, and it's located west of Albertsons. I guess that's a good way to put it. And this is the water tower for Silver Lake. And this will form a loop road here. And here you go. Here's a little sneak peek at some of the pictures when you drive by. As you can see, they're pretty much wrapping up the plat. I think they have 7 homes they're working on, and they maybe have 1 or 2 left, and there's 25 total. So they're selling quite quickly, and they start around 800,000. That's their starting point. So moving forward, let's take another look. This is a completely different project. We are looking at self-storage. Where do people put their stuff? There is still a demand for self-storage units. This is actually phase 2 of a Smart Stop storage facility. The phase 1 is located, it would be north of the Providence Medical Building. This was all constructed under the same binding site plan here at the city of Mill Creek. The current owner did phase 2. It sat idle for a while. He decided to sell the property. It was recently picked up. And now when you drive by this site, you will see that there's going to be 3 storage facilities going in here. The access drive with Providence Medical is actually going to be improved and widened. The 2 property owners worked together and they coordinated a safe design for a new driveway so it will fit the needs of both the storage facility and the medical facility. And if you've driven by, they're taking the grade down pretty rapidly. They have a very good construction crew out there. They're quite top notch. They're moving along quickly. And actually, let me go back here. This is supposed to be completed by early next year. So if you have any questions, feel free to give me a call or email me. So let's take a look. What is popular? Land values are high. Demand for homes are high. What is that causing people to do? They are looking what they have. And this also includes people who have larger lots. They're looking how to subdivide, what they can do to generate revenue and housing. This is what we call an infill development. A little short plat. This one over here was done several years ago. They're essentially doing a mirror image of it here. The homes have been completed. It has private access. And this particular 3-lot short plat, it's located between Lowe's and Albertsons. And roughly, if you're familiar with Heatherwood, they do have a loop road in there. A lot of people call it the racetrack. So this is just north of the racetrack in here. Here's a look at the plat design. The last item they need to finish on here is the roadway buffer, which is required by our code. This 50-foot landscape buffer, it will provide a barrier and a vegetative noise reduction between 132nd Street and the new single-family homes. That's supposed to be completed here shortly, and that will be the last item for this particular short plat. And we do have quite a few more lots here in the city to be developed with infill development. So, as far as pending projects go, we have 4 of them. All 4 of these projects have been impacted in some way or another by the economy or different financial items, or the developer is just choosing to wait until the time is right. So we do have 4 of them. Some of them you may have heard before, or they may have been before you. The first one is the 35th Avenue mixed use development. Where is this one at? This one is actually located by the Grange and the espresso stand there at Seattle Hill Road and 35th. So there's that particular project. It does have ground floor commercial and 3 floors of condos is what's intended for there. They'll have great views. And then Muttley Square, this is the site north of La Schwab that was approved, and it's approved for a doggy daycare and a kennel. And then obviously the 7C Swim School, which many of you are familiar with because the developer was here before you for that site training that they needed to acquire on the city's property for safe travel distance on their particular site. Then we have the Cube storage site. And I'd like to refer to this one as the existing Amesbury nursery site because most of us know where it's at. That had previously been approved for a storage facility and is now back on the market. So where do Tom spend a lot of our time? We spend a lot of our time working with developers in the community. We respond to a lot of questions about what people want to put on their property, what they can, provide them setback information. And also when there's vacant land, for instance, there's quite a few parcels along Bothell Everett Highway and down 9th Avenue. We work with them to determine what type of use would be a good fit for the community, not just for revenue generation, but also for the use and for what people would like to see. I just had to put the wrap in here because it's great. And our A and B board, they've worked hard on those. And why do we love Mill Creek? Well, because we put a lot of thought and a lot of time into our projects, not just the layout, but also the design. So these are projects that are more forward thinking, but yet you've probably seen most of them. And our planning department, I'll call it the magic hands, we're working on these behind the scene. These are things that aren't just a 6-month project. Often they're a year long, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, even 5. What are they? Some of these you've heard before, and they've already even been before you, and they'll continue to be before you for a while. That's our comp plan update coming up in 2024. And this requires coordination, not just with Mill Creek, PSRC, but Snohomish County. And that brings us to Snohomish County Buildable Lands update. We're currently working on this right now, and it's a tie-in to the comp plan. Then the Mill Creek Boulevard Corridor Study. Most of you are very familiar with that. Tom Rogers has been coordinating and spearheading this, and hopefully that will wrap up sometime this year. Then we have code amendments. These are always ongoing because they're not only housekeeping, but there's legislative changes and legal changes that we need to address, or there are what I'll call life change or social marketing issues that we need to address, like the ADU code changes that came through. That's one example of that. Then the abbreviation here, I had to do the abbreviation because it's all 4 of the city's properties here, the Dobson Remillard Church and the Cook property. So we get the DRCC. This has been before you and will continue to be before you. Karen Reed, you're working with her, the consultant on this. What can we do with our property? What's the desire of the community? What does council see as the best fit? Those are all questions that you are looking at. Then we have the CT Orange Line. These projects are all agency coordination. We work with each other behind the scenes, in front of the scenes, and with the city councils and the residents. We're working on these projects as we move forward for our connection here in Mill Creek. And then we also have to process and move forward with other agencies' capital facility projects, not just Everett school districts, but as an example, this one here, the Silver Lake Water and Sewer District lift station expansion. It's needed, it's required, the residents are waiting for it. So we're working on that and coordinating with them on this. And then, dun, 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 questions. I'm done. Thank you for listening to me. But we do have a lot of things going on, and it keeps us very busy, and we get a lot of questions on a daily basis from people. So I'd like to extend to you, if you ever have a question, if you're out and about town, or you get a call from a resident, please do not hesitate to contact our department with anything you may need or to field us the question. We are always available and we'll respond to them. And I'd like to thank you for your time this evening. Much appreciated.
Thank you, Christy. Before we get to questions, I had one. There's a plat under development on the south side of Seattle Hill Road, just west of the parks, that I didn't see on here.
Oh, the south of Seattle Hill Road?
From the south side of Seattle Hill Road, just west of the parks.
3 Oaks.
Oh, the 3 Oaks project. Oh yeah, did I miss that? There's too many. Did I miss it? Hold on.
Yeah.
I just went through there.
Really? See,
Well,
too many.
Let's give a quick summary of that project.
Actually,
I don't know how many people looked at this.
Thanks, Brian. Because I was just out there yesterday.
Christy, just give a short verbal synopsis there. Oral.
Oh yeah. Okay, so the plat of 3 Oaks, I should zoom out. Here, I'll go again. So the plat of 3 Oaks, it is an 8-lot plat. They just put in the meandering sidewalk out there. It's a private road that goes in there. They're homes, they're very high-end homes. They're custom homes by Brooks, by Edward Brooks, by Brooks Homes. They will be starting construction of the homes within the next month. We anticipate issuing their first building permits. Tom, we invoiced them today. So I would expect the permits to be issued sometime this week or next week. They do have their lumber drop out there. So it's basically an 8-lot plat. That's what you're looking at.
Thank you, Christy. Councilmember Browse?
Yeah, I did have one question. You had mentioned some environmental mitigations throughout that. I'd like to see what there is for environmental mitigations for the Mill Creek Commons 2. You mentioned that, but I didn't see anything there. Seemed like a lot of.
Oh, Mill Creek Commons 2, the self-storage facility. I'm sorry, I have a hard time hearing the audio from the council.
Yeah, all right. That was the environmental mitigations on Mill Creek Commons 2. You'd spoken quite a bit about what what mitigations we had for several of the other sites. I was wondering what we had for that one.
Oh, for that particular one, there's not a whole lot. They had very minimal mitigation for that site because they primarily selected avoidance, which is the first criteria in our code. So that's why a very small portion of the site is actually being developed. And let me go there. I'll show you the aerial of it. There. Let me see if I have a, so the creeks here, just the very interior of the site is being developed. The main portion of the site is actually in preservation, native growth protection area. I would gladly send you a link to the project page of where that is at. But that one was approved back in, I think, 2017.
Okay, I would appreciate that link.
Sure, most definitely. I'll send that to you.
Thank you.
Mike Todd, I could add that that one has one of the few places in Mill Creek that the water will infiltrate into the soils. And so that has some very innovative infiltration trenches so that the stormwater that falls on that site will be infiltrated on that site under the LID requirements. And so it is, as Christy said, it's kind of a small part of it's being developed, but it's also one of those where the water can soak into the ground.
Yeah, it's great. We have just maybe 3 or 4 sites in the city that qualify for LID for the infiltration, and that happens to be one of them. Thank you, Mike.
Christy, is that an official site plan that was administratively approved, or was that approved by our hearing examiner?
That was approved by the hearing examiner.
So the hearing examiner goes through the process of making sure the project complies with all our codes and regulations, including all of our environmental regulations.
That is correct. SEPA was issued on it obviously before public hearing in accordance with state law.
Thank you. Councilmember Cavalier.
Pardon?
Thank you, Mayor. Can you hear me okay, Christy?
It's actually really hard to hear the audio from the council chamber. So I'm leaning in. I know it sounds funny, but I'm leaning in. Hopefully I can hear you better from the laptop.
Same here. I'm cutting out as close as I can to the microphone. Hey, thanks. Great presentation. Great update. One of the questions I have is regarding the farm and vintage. Do we have numbers of occupancy levels of for the first floors of both of those? I know we were going to talk about that, and I was hoping we could.
Are you looking for residential occupancy, or are you looking for commercial?
Actually, both would be great if you have them. I mean, I think that would be something everybody.
So I may not be 100% accurate, but last time when I talked to Jennifer, who was doing the leasing, that they were approximately 50% leased out for commercial space. And then as far as residential goes, I do not know if they're at full capacity yet. I will tell you that I have a daughter who's in college. She was looking to move out for something that might be affordable to her, being a worker and a college student and a future engineer. She went to their list, but their waiting list was even extensive. So she vetoed that. So I would anticipate that they would not have a problem as far as leasing goes. We do have a couple commercial tenants that we do know for sure that we can share with you. The Bright Horizons, that's a commercial daycare and a school, private one. And then we also have a restaurant and a little small grocer that we received our first tenant improvement for that. And revenue generated just from that one TI, which is a tenant improvement for that one building, which is right at the corner of 39th. Tom, how much was that for that particular building? It was 1 point. Is your audio on? Oh, your audio. Do you want to hit unmute?
The value of the improvement was $1.5 million, and I think the permit was around $9,000. It's just the review fee. So, but as far as that number, I'm not exactly sure, but it was surprising how much value these tenant improvements have. It
is, and then when you get into medical, restaurant, just the cost based on the equipment and the installation and the mechanical and electrical that goes with it is also a reason for the cost. So there are benefits both socially, marketability wise, and revenue generation for those tenant improvements. And please keep in mind, it's not even like the first time a tenant improvement happens, but if you look at Town Center, you'll see the transition, and each time a new tenant comes in, if they're required to do a structural change or anything like that, they have to come in for a building permit. So then the city receives revenue, plan reviews that's looked at by planning and our building official. And then inspections are also generated from that. So it's not just new development, but it's also redevelopment and attrition of existing businesses that we get permit revenue from. So it's all good.
That's exciting. I think we're all jazzed about the potential of retail out there. And last kind of side question, can you share the restaurant? Is it a chain or is it a local entrepreneur?
I can't. They've been pretty secret squirrel until we actually something in with a name on it. I can't say anything.
Okay, thanks, Chris. Thanks, Tom.
Certainly.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mayor. Christy, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Great. I am going to ask you a question that my 7-year-old is going to want to know. I think all the 7-year-olds in the REIT are going to want to know. You said McDonald's is going to be demolished for a few months as they rebuild. Do you know how long that it's going to be no McDonald's down there?
How long the building will be down? Honestly, that is one reason why they bumped out the construction time. I don't know for sure how long. Once I find out, I can certainly let you know. Typically, it's around when they did the other McDonald's, it was around five months. I can tell you it's in the interest of the owner. They like a full meal deal. The pun is intended, but they want all the permits approved before they even start work. That way they can move quickly and rapidly so there's less downtime, because as you know, that is a very busy McDonald's. So their goal is to be shut down minimal length of time as possible and reopened.
Yeah, thank you, Christy. I'm sure there's going to be some tantrums at the house over this. I probably won't be the only one. And thank you for the presentation to show us all these properties and everything that's going on tonight. It was very well done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Virtual habits are hard to break. Councilmember Stegler, I turned your light on for you.
Hi, Christy. I had a couple of. Okay, what am I doing?
Certainly.
You lower the volume on your laptop, Councilman Stuck.
I did. I thought I was muted. I muted at the beginning.
The mute will black out the mic on the laptop.
I got your mute, Councilmember Steckler.
You're all set.
All right, so there we go. Thank you. Hi, Christy. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Oh, good. I had two questions. I wanted to spend a little bit more on Council Member Cavallari's questions. On the farm, I'm a little confused on when will the apartment units, the residential units, be available for move-in? When will people be able to move in there and take occupancy?
They're supposed to be ready for move-in this summer.
Okay, and is there a
July or
are they on track to meet their requirements regarding commercial space to allow for the residential occupancy?
Yeah, so they have the 75% lease rate requirement in the DA. So what we've done is we've put like a secure, or we have some locks on the permits. So the C of O cannot be issued until they have met those leasing requirements that's outlined in the DA.
Right, and have they met those requirements yet?
They have not.
Okay, so
Can I clarify on that?
So they won't be issued until they provide documentation that's been met. Yes, Tom?
Yeah, it's not that they're leased. They have to have constructed the commercial and have the shells ready to occupy. We're not going to hold up the residential units if people don't move into them, but they were required to build the commercial and have them ready to lease at that 75%. So I just wanted to clarify.
Yeah, and so far they have three buildings that have their shell TIs that have been signed off. Their C of O for their shell, as Tom noted.
Thank you for the clarification. So as long as they construct the commercial space, whether they're leased or not, the residentials can move in, correct?
Correct.
Thank you. That's good to know. So we will have spaces for people to live there. Great. Another question I had for you was in regards to the design review board. I'm still a little new on this, so I don't know this. So this is a inquisitive answer. I was made the council liaison at the beginning of the year for the DRB, and we have not had a meeting yet this year. Keeps getting canceled. So I was really pleasantly surprised with all of this development that we're doing. So what is the process? When does the design review board get involved with the development to give their approval, or do they need to give their approval for a project to move forward?
So a project is required to go to design review board if it's a multifamily, commercial, and or a public project that's outlined in the design review board's, their scope of authority. So if you're referring to this year, yeah, we haven't had a lot of projects come forward this year to the design review board. So they haven't met a whole lot this year because last year and the year before were super swamped. So you might have something coming this summer, but even for next month, we don't have anything that has been submitted. But they do look at all landscape projects, building exteriors, and monument signs is what they're required to look at. It's just an example of some projects. And Tom, do you have any other input on the DRB?
No, just that they are required for, as Christy said, they're required for any kind of commercial kind of development. We don't require them for single family homes. It's basically the only one that doesn't get reviewed by the design review board. And we do it at the end of the system after the plan view has basically been approved by the hearing examiner, and they're limited to landscaping, building materials, and sort of the elevations as far as how it looks. They don't get involved in designing the projects.
The applicants are allowed to go for a free informal review at any time during the process. So as an example, the farm, because it was so big, they started design review prior to the hearing examiner's approval of the project, just to get some informal feedback from them on what they liked, if they felt it met the code requirements and the design standards for the East Gateway area.
Okay, this is clarification. So 2 questions. Who approves the design of these projects?
The design review board.
Now they're kind of doing the landscaping and the materials.
Final.
And the hearing examiner.
The site layout or the design of
The design of the building, the project.
The hearing examiner.
Yeah, the actual
Is
layout.
it the hearing examiner or the design review board that approves the design of the project?
Correct.
Correct.
It is the hearing examiner, is that correct?
Yeah, how the buildings are sited on the piece of property, we call that the site layout. That is approved by the hearing examiner as whether it meets code or not. The DRB looks at the material on the buildings where it's located at and the landscaping where it's located at. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does. It's clarifying for me.
More sense explaining it that way? Okay.
All right, that makes sense. So the fact.
Kind of a weird approval process, not one then the other.
I'm sorry. Oh, the fact that the DRB has not been meeting should not significantly slow down a number of developments in the works because they're being reviewed currently, but not by the DRB.
Correct. Yeah, our process is set up to streamline development review. And that's part of the process is squeezing in DRB so it doesn't bog down the process.
And is the hearing examiner, that is a consultant that we retain? Is that, I just don't know.
Oh, he is a private, independent, legal hearing examiner. He rates us as much as he does the applicant. We're subject to review by him as much as the applicant. We provide the burden of proof for the project, and he makes sure staff's legal consensus and project compliance matches city code as much as the applicant is complying with city code. And then they also listen to the concerns of the public. And if there's anything that's not being addressed, he will often condition or ask the city staff to work with the applicant and the residents to provide additional conditions on the project to make it compatible. So they are completely independent.
To answer the question though, is the city did we did a bid trying to get hearing examiners. We interviewed a couple, and that's the one we selected. We have a contract with them.
Yeah.
It's a contractor.
It's like hiring a city attorney.
Yeah, John, some jurisdictions like the county have one project that they employ their own hearing examiner. Most smaller cities, there's a group of people, some of them are attorneys, some of them aren't, that do hearing examiner work for jurisdictions. So we have a contract that we've approved in the past for keeping the hearing examiner on retainer essentially when we have projects come through that they need to process.
No,
He charges by the hour. He comes to the hearing. He runs the meeting, and basically he's our hired hearing examiner. He's done a great job. There were times when we had hearing examiners that weren't as great, and that's why we went out for bid again. But this person does a really good job, and as Christy said, they evaluate the staff's job as well as the applicant and make sure that it meets the city's codes, and they're basically the judge. And we hired a hearing examiner about 10 years ago at the request of the Washington City's Insurance Authority, because there's a lot of liability, and I don't want to just take it the wrong way, but when the politicians get involved in land use issues, there's been a lot of big settlements, and so we basically put the burden on a professional person to evaluate a project with our existing codes, and if the council doesn't like what's coming out of the other end of it, then what the focus should be then is to changing the rules. And we had some discussion about that with the short course, if I recall, about a year ago. But that's why we went to a hearing examiner system.
So the part that it's an eye opener to me, I understand, is that a hearing examiner, I thought, was the one who made sure that we followed the correct requirements according to codes and such of our building. And yet they're also going to make design decisions. That's the person who makes the design decisions and approvals. And when it goes to a design review board, they're making decisions about materials and landscaping. But the actual look of the project is not designed by the design review. It's not approved by the design review board.
No, it's not.
That's clear. That's clear to me now.
Okay.
Any further questions from City Council? And if you think of something later, please don't hesitate to call either Tom, Mike, or I.
Yeah, can I add one last thing to kind of, if everybody else is done?
Councilmember Morgan had a question.
Yeah, just a quick question. It was in regards to the upcoming projects. One of the items is the Snohomish County buildable lands update. Do we currently have an inventory of buildable land, or is that something you're compiling?
Do you want to answer that, or want me to answer it?
Tom, you go ahead.
If you want to answer,
Okay.
yeah,
well, the county has their process, but we've always maintained basically what we call our vacant or underdeveloped lands, in case somebody calls us and says, hey, what's available that you know of? And we've got a map. I think it's even on our webpage.
It
the
is.
Economic Developments area. And we've even done a preliminary assessment about how many lots it would hold or how many square feet of office. And it's there just as a reference in case somebody calls and is looking to do something in Mill Creek. But we do have that, but there's an official one that's done countywide. That's part of the growth management Act stuff. And so we participate in that, and we make sure that what we have is consistent with what the county is showing.
Okay, great. And you said that what we currently have is available through our website?
Yeah, I think
Yes.
it's on the department's economic development page, if I'm not mistaken. But if you can't find it, give us a call. We'll lead you right to it.
Beautiful, thank you.
Thank you.
Any further questions?
Could I,
Thank you, Christine, Tom, appreciate it.
could I say one last thing?
Sure.
So we're trying to, as a lot of these questions have demonstrated, is that there's a lot of, our department does a lot of work in the background, and it's how these things happen isn't exactly clear. And so we're trying to bring these to the council to kind of sort of be more transparent so that there's more understanding. And that next on the list, it might be a few months down the road, but we're going to try to have some other cities, possibly some representatives, come and talk about what they're doing, so you can see what Christy did, sort of the projects coming out of the ground, just so you can kind of get a feel of what's going on, not just in your own city, but sort of what's in our immediate neighbors, such as Linwood or Everett or unincorporated Snohomish County. So that will be coming up next, but I just wanted to sort of give you a little preview of that.
Tom, what might be helpful for the council is if you take a project that has been approved, has passed all the appeal periods, and include in a presentation in the packet a copy of the hearing examiner decision, so the council can see the issues that the hearing examiner reviews, and then show them the minutes of the design review board when they reviewed the plans for the building and the landscape to see how they look at the issues. That might help clarify some.
Yeah, what all that information is available on our website, but what I'm thinking, if I put together an email or something, and with the links, took one project and sort of the various reports, sort of the original application, the design review board minutes, and the hearing examiner minutes, and the staff report, and even the PowerPoint that was presented, I could put those links to those that are on our website, and then you could sort of go through the clicks if you wanted to. You don't have to, but you could. And just sort of see what.
I would suggest, I think the questions are excellent. And what we might do is just spend 10, 15 minutes rather than a self-serve, let's read the email and click on a link. Maybe in the next meeting, we can go through particular applications so that we're able to clarify. I think we could all benefit from it. I'm learning from the question I was asked. So rather than the council having to go find the question, let us serve you and let's bring that information to you.
We can work on that. We're having a little bit of a hard time hearing what you guys are saying in the council chambers, but we will work on that. City manager, Tom, and Christy and I will work on the best way to present that back. Because I think we all reflect and understand it. We didn't want to take you through too many details, but I think there's an appetite for understanding the process and the role we play and the role the hearing examiner plays in the DRB. So we can get that put together. Thanks.
Councilmember Stickler, is your light back on?
Yeah, my light is back. So is my echo. Maybe this is, there we go. I wanted to clarify for Christy, Tom, and all of our team development side. My questions were purely inquisitive, clarifying questions. I just want to make sure that's very, very clear. You're doing a great job. I love what I've seen here in regards to development. I should have led with that comment. So please let me clarify for both of you and the rest of the team. Great job on the developments. Great job on where we're going. I love what I'm seeing coming up in our city. I just needed to understand the role of the DRB and the hearing examiner. I just wanted to understand that and make sure it's clear for everybody how it works. So my questions are nothing more than clarifying so that we understand how this process works. But again, great job to all of you. I want to make sure that was clearly communicated. Thank you.
Thank you. Gosh, I thought I might get another presentation.
You might.
Moving on to what's next? Item D, the Mill Creek Public Portal.
Thank you, Mayor. The first, with regard to the audio, we are attempting to clarify the difference that can explain why the audio that was excellent last week is different. So we're going to try and do that while this meeting continues. The public portal is really just a way for us to enhance what is currently on the city's website. We currently use a software that helps us manage the work through our system. It was something that was purchased by the city a number of years ago. We've only discovered recently what a powerhouse it is in terms of its untapped potential. What we are hoping will come out of the presentation this evening is not only a banner on the city's current website that will enable you to link onto it to go into the portal, but the key to the portal is that it links directly to the software that we as administrators use. And so many of the tools that we use to search for documents with certain keyword requests, you're able to pull through all the documents that are part of our presentations historically to the council. They're added as part of either the appendix or hyperlinks. It also includes minutes and other keyword searches that give you the same expansive searching tool that we as administrators have. Before, this portal was not available because it simply wasn't linked. In a moment, our city clerk is going to pull on the screen the features of it. And what we want you to know is that this is our 1.0. And the question was, at what point do we at least present to the council and to the community what we've done thus far so that we can solicit your and citizen input in terms of upgrades. So with that quick introduction, this should not take more than 10 minutes, but we then want to invite questions. So I'll ask our city clerk, Naomi Fay, if you could bring up the screen and just give us a quick nickel tour, which by the way, this is active as of earlier this afternoon.
Yes, thank you. So good evening, everybody. And just like the city manager did talk about, this is a way to link our website with this public portal. And the public portal is basically a one-stop shop to get all the information in one place that's easy navigatable. But in the transition, as we're moving from one format to another, we have this on our website, so it'll be easy for all of you to find out where the portal is. So right now in the banner portion where you would normally link to the Zoom invite for our city council meetings, in red here, you would view the public portal and just click where it says here. So I'm going to do that now. And this is our public portal. It's basically very similar to our website. So it's not too much of a change, but the change is to make it easily navigatable for all business that happens at City Hall. Just like we were talking about transparency and ways to engage our citizens as well as our staff and council to empower each and every one of us so that we have the information right at our fingertips, right? With this online remote working, this is the best platform to get everybody in real time on the same information, one platform. So here's the portal. And basically our homepage, this is very exciting for us, that everything's all in one page here. Right now, if you look at our live stream, this is a way that you would go to the portal, hit the live stream button. I'm not going to click on it right now because it's going to show our live stream Zoom meeting happening right now, but you would just click there and it would show the meeting. I'm going to click on a prior meeting, so our May 11th meeting, just to give you an idea of how you would be able to view the agenda and materials for our council meetings. It's not only for council meetings, it's for boards and commissions. So we'll have the design review board. You'll be able to see their agenda. When the minutes are uploaded, you'd be able to see that as well, all on this portal. So here is the agenda from our last meeting. It shows right here. If I click on the video button, takes a little while to upload.
All right, we're going live on.
Okay, so that was our prior meeting. The wonderful thing that's happening here, you'll be able to view the agenda on one side and look at our wonderful council and our constituents and community on the other. So that's what that looks like. So I'm going to go back to the home page here. So the public portal has a really great powerhouse in the search tool. And before, it was only internal staff that had this ability to search. And now our citizens and our community will be able to do that as well. This is going to help us relieve some of the timeliness when somebody needs information and they don't want to put a public records request because they were just asking for a document. Maybe it was a contract that was put on our agenda. Maybe it's the governance manual, or maybe it's even about our recent project that we're all brainstorming about and thinking about, the DRCC. So if you hit the search tool, basically you're going to come into this page. You would type in a keyword. So I will give an example of DRCC, and I'm going to hit search. And it's basically like a Google search. You're going to have access to all the documents that we have uploaded onto our iCompass format. We are on what the manager did talk about. We're at 1.0 because as we were figuring out this whole system and who uses the system, before it was only maybe 2 or 3 staff, city clerk, that used this system. Now all our directors and our staff are using iCompass. We're still integrating it and we're still learning. So bear with us, but we're still excited in terms of bringing all the information to you. We're still adapting and uploading all materials as we speak. So we do have the resources library. Another great thing here is this e-updates or subscribe. So if you click on that button, you'll be able to give us your email, and then you will be notified when the agenda is published for any meeting, board, or commission meeting. So that's a really wonderful thing. Even if, say, there is a special meeting that's happening, subscribe, find out what's happening, be more engaged as things are happening in real time that staff is doing, that our elected officials are doing, you're going to get notified. This is a better way to serve our community and to empower. Also, there's also a tab here for public records requests. You're still able to do that. And of course, our municipal code. Along the side here, if you wanted to take a look at any other prior meeting, you would just look at the recent meetings and click on the tab. Also, the wonderful thing is, if you don't know our social media sites or you don't know our pages, if you would just click on the icons, just like what you would do on your phone, click on Facebook, get to our page, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, and an email. And then you're also taking a look at your scheduled meetings in the calendar. I'm going to quickly just go into the meetings. I think you're all getting up to speed. Also on this meeting, if you still would like to join in person, the way that you would reserve your spot is by emailing us. There is a link here. It's still on our website. Just if you're familiar with our website, everything is still there. But if you want to try out the portal and see how well it navigates and if it's easy for you to find the information, please do that. And if there's anything that you think could be tweaked, or please let us know, and we are willing to update that and just refine it even better. So here is our city council regular meetings. We have uploaded the last agenda here. If you click on members on the bottom, and that's just for our city council, you'll take a look here at all our council members. You'll be able to have their phone number and email clicking right here, just like what you would do in our website, but you also have access here to check out our governance manual, the council liaison assignments, what the city manager does. All the information is there. So I think I went through it as quick as I can. Are there any questions?
I have a question. This is great, thank you, Naomi, really great. What if somebody wanted to, I know sometimes we're looking for topics that were covered in agenda, I'd like to look at the minutes to find out when we talked about a particular topic. Now, in the past, you've gone to the website, you look up the meetings and you click on minutes and you read through the minutes, and if it wasn't there, you go to the next meeting, click on the minutes.
We can still hear you.
Oh, well, no, is that it?
Yes, we can still hear you. Yes, that's a very good question of, you wanted to check out the different minutes.
What if somebody wanted to say, when did we talk about DRCC? When did we talk about, how about design review board? Where would I find that in the minutes? How would I source that faster than going to all the minutes?
Okay, I'm going to share my screen again.
Show us that.
Okay, so I hit the search function, right? Here's our homepage. You're welcome to hit the box here, or even right on top of the toolbar. You click on the search, and then you're going to type in the keyword. Say you wanted to learn, you wanted the meeting minutes of the of May 11, let's see. Let's pick a later one, because as they're approved and then signed electronically, then we have to upload it on there. So I would have to publish it. So
Okay, so your answer is you upload each set of minutes, then you would search the minutes for a keyword, right?
exactly. But once it's published, I'm going to, I have to check to see how that would be. And I'll let you know if it would show up like our recent meetings, but you would search it in the search form. And here's council meeting minutes of April 13th. You would click on it. And then you're going to see the document. You need to click on that document again. And then click on Open PDF. And then you'll have the option to view it just on your screen. You can download it by this little arrow and the line. So you could actually download it to your own computer and print it out.
So earlier today, Councilman Stackler, your question, Naomi, if you could please take us back, and I believe we typed in DRCC. And if I'm hearing the question, it's whether from this search tool, we can hone in on meeting minutes that reference that topic without having it be indexed first by the meeting date to pull the minute.
Right. Okay. So I just, you could see my screen. And I typed in DRCC and I typed in meeting minutes. Let's see what happens.
That worked, we could pull up all the minutes where they cited DRCC.
Yeah, so it looks like you'll see it in bold. So I think the best way, it's just like any question or you get an answer, the more clarifying your question, the more clarifying your answer you're going to be, right? And it's the same thing with search tools.
And again, as you said at the beginning, this is 1.0, which is great.
Right.
1.1 or 1.2, if we were able to download all minutes into a batch and then from that batch to keyword search, I think that would help with a lot of what people are looking for when they're looking for information.
Yeah, and I just, I know Mike Todd has used this function really well and he could chime in. But what I just did here was DRCC, and then I took out meeting and I included just minutes. And then I was able to see here whenever it brought up DRCC. So here, but Mike, please.
Yeah,
chime in.
So scroll back up, Naomi. One of the things you could do down there at the bottom, it says select location optional. If that's functional, what you do is you click on that. And you could say, I only want to look in ordinances, or I only want to look in city council meeting minutes. And if you click on city council meeting minutes, little arrow next to it, over to the left, city council meeting minutes, a little lower right there, click to the left, not that box, go to the arrow to the left of it. It expands out and you can look at just the minutes from 2017. So if you know it was 2017 and was minutes, then you look just for DRCC in that. So if your brain tells you it was about this time, then you can make your search results more specific. So we use that tool a lot to kind of zoom in on things, particularly for a topic that would come up lots of different places. So it's a very powerful tool. Power means there's lots of options. It takes you a little time to figure out how to do it, but as Naomi's doing there, you go, oh, hold on, I want to look at just 2017. Instead of having 3 pages of results, now it's going to come back with, hopefully it's going to come back with less. I'm not exactly sure how this is implemented yet, but
Yeah, it looks like it's taking a little time to upload it. We do need to refine it.
oh, you've still got the word minutes in the top. So get rid of the word minutes in your search. So just DRCC within minutes from 2017, hit search, and you'll probably find none. Maybe we got a glitch there still.
Yeah, so let's see. Let's just try 2020 and not 2021. How about that?
Well, this is the law of demos happening. This is something, I've not tried this myself, but the tool that we've been using internally is pretty powerful. We may need to get this tweaked because it looks like it's not quite working the same way. But like I said earlier, this is version 1.0, just exposing you to this concept, letting you know this is a work in progress.
Yeah, and I wanted to let everybody know, as I came into the system, we have had this meeting management software since 2006, and there had to be some upgrades and since that time. So as we're finding, I realized, oh, this has this capability. Now we went back to the software company and said, can you upgrade us? We need this. Can you tweak this for us? We would like this for us and change this kind of thing. So that it has never been upgraded or since 2006 until now. So that's what we're doing. And thank you for your patience as we're doing it. We know the capability of doing it, so we're just honing in, refining it so that it makes it easier for all of you to come in there and search.
John, did you have another question? Councilmember Morgan.
Thank you. I think this is a fantastic tool. We're well on our way to fully embracing the 21st century in all its aspects here. You know, I think this is great. As they say, the PSA from the 80s, knowledge is power, and having access to this knowledge is such a powerful tool. So thanks for upgrading this. I think this is light years ahead of what our website was prior.
What I would add on that point is that this is being created parallel to the website. So as long as you click on the portal, and there's numerous places in which you can do that, you are going to be in what we're envisioning to be the upgrade ultimately. But we're tired of waiting for it. We've got a platform that we paid for, and yet with this software that we are now fully embracing, we see an opportunity to do something with a simple link to get us in another way, in another avenue, to have access to these documents much more efficiently. So we really want to emphasize that in presenting this evening, we kept saying, how long are we going to wait? What else can we refine? How can we make it better? And we got to the point where we can just say, listen, we know it's not perfect. We own that. This is where the citizen input from members of council and the community at large can help go a long way towards giving us the data that we will need for 2.0. So pardon the rough edges, it's still under construction. We're going to rely upon everyone on council and in our community to help us make it better. Thank you.
Any further questions?
I'd like to make a comment real quick. Thank you very much. I think this is going to be extremely helpful for all the residents who have been asking for a way to search the website better. And I know it's going to help me, and I'm sure my fellow council members when we're doing research for meetings to look up things that have happened in the past too. So this is going to be a very useful tool. So thank you for researching and making this happen for us.
I agree. Thank you. Thank you, Naomi. Thank you, Michael. On to the governance manual. Michael, are you going to tee this up and go straight to Craig?
Real quickly, and I also on the final point want to acknowledge that really the entire management team has worked to provide the feedback. And Joe Sokolowski has been instrumental in working with our city clerk in bringing this to fruition. So I want to acknowledge a team effort on this part. On that subject of team efforts, we've all worked a lot as it relates to the governance manual. Our hope or expectation is that it may be ready for adoption this evening. If the council needs additional time, we're flexible. But with that quick introduction, Grant, if you could take it away. You're on mute, Grant.
Thank you very much, Mr. Caravino. Good evening, council members and community. I have a very short presentation. Let's see, Naomi, you want to give me permission to?
You have permission. I can also
Great.
share whatever, you are a co-host, Grant, so
Are we up?
you're up.
Great. Speaking of technology and technology working, so just by way of reintroducing the topic, council's been working since February on revisions to the governance manual. We sort of took it in a series of bites. We looked at articles 1 through 5 in February, and then in March we did another group of them that are addressing standards of conduct in city administration. In April, we talked about the rules governing the council meetings, both the standpoint of setting the agendas and also in Article 8, parliamentary procedure. We learned a little bit of new parliamentary procedures as part of that effort. And then on May 4th, we presented you a draft of the revisions to the manual, both in a strike draft form, but also in a clean form. And then this week, we recirculated a revised clean version that cleaned up some of the formatting challenges we had in the document and some of the grammatical errors. So hopefully while you all have been working on other matters, I've been including Barbara Heidel's suggested revisions and grammatical changes. So we've got that under control as well. Tonight, what we want to do is ask you to ask for your input on any changes in the text of the governance manual, and then also in the resolution that we circulated and you've had since May 4th. Under this resolution, we will be repealing the old 1983 resolution that governed procedures for council meetings that was rather old-fashioned and a bit out of date in terms of its terminology. We also would be repealing the resolution from 2011 that adopted the original governance manual. In section 2 of the resolution, we're going to be adopting the new manual, the one before you. We'll be adopting Robert's Rules of Order newly revised, which is the version of Robert's Rules that we'll be using as part of our governance manual. And then we'll also be setting an order of precedence, for how if there are ambiguities or conflicts, we would say that the terms of the resolution would govern first, followed by the terms of the manual, and then terms of that are found in Robert's Rules. So it's good to have an order of precedent, if you will. Finally, we discussed in our April meeting about the need for clarifying the rules for public testimony. We have them in the governance manual, but we thought it would be good, and you have had in the past a resolution that recited what your rules for public testimony at city council meetings are, but also for legislative public hearings, because we are repealing the provisions from the older ordinances that govern that. So we have provisions in there that set forth the manner in which you would govern public hearings and testimony at legislative public hearings. Also, we have provisions for how you would operate under and take testimony at quasi-judicial hearings or appeals. As you talked about earlier in the presentation with the planning staff, the council doesn't do much in the way of quasi-judicial hearings and appeals anymore. Most of that's done by your hearing examiner. There's only a few matters that would come to council on appeal in quasi-judicial hearings, and that would be plats and binding site plans, and there may be, I think, possibly conditional use permits for parks. So there's not much, but it could come up occasionally, and you want to have provisions governing those. And what we tried to do with those provisions is make sure that they dovetail with the provisions you have in Title 14 of the code that governs what the hearing examiner does and how the hearing examiner handles appeals. So with that, the only thing else I have is just a proposed motion if the council is inclined to adopt the rules, and I'm happy to answer any questions or to review any provisions. I know there was one suggested change in the rule in the resolution that Councilmember Briles had that we have incorporated and added the resolution that you received on Friday. And that was one that addressed the fact that if you want to suspend the rules for how you handle public testimony at council meetings, you would need either unanimous consent or a 2/3, not a majority vote, but a 2/3 vote of the council. So with that, maybe we can take this off my stop sharing here and take any questions you might have.
Grant, addressing Ms. Heidel's comment on page 29 under new initiatives,
Mhm.
I think the missing word is consideration between council and subject.
Got it.
So it would read, purpose of such a discussion is to offer council members an opportunity to propose topics for future council consideration, subject to the process described in section 7.1.
Thank you, Mayor.
So this is our first opportunity to all discuss in the same room, virtual or real, the revised governance manual. Any questions, comments?
Grant, can you just direct me where the portion, I remember we were concerned, one of the concerns I sent you was about the public commentary piece about not limiting. Where exactly is that? And did we make those changes? I haven't seen it.
We did make those changes. It was a striking out, it was in section 8, Councilmember Cavallari, and I believe it was at 8.10, and it's been removed. And that was the one where there was a discussion about having a limit on the number of people that would speak on one side of a topic if it was not a public hearing, and we did delete it.
One thing I'd just like to bring to the council's attention is, remember, one of the issues we wanted to try to clarify is what is the process and procedure if there's a question about conduct of the city staff or council member? And that is, under this guidance manual, under this governance manual, that's in section 6.8 through the city attorney. So, one question and point that I think we'll need to make sure that we publicize is if we're saying the process is through the city attorney, we should put some information on the website clarifying how someone gets in touch with the city attorney. That's the person that we're designated to be the funnel for who these issues go to. Councilmember Stackler?
Yeah, when I was reviewing this, there's so many, not just additions, but also a lot of strikeouts that, I was wondering if I brought up all these questions in a meeting, I think I would suck up so much time to go over these. Would it be best to do this at a council meeting now, public meeting? Would it be best to do it as a study session? Would it best to do in a special meeting? I just was worried about, I could spend an hour or longer asking for clarification after clarification after clarification, or I could keep my mouth shut, but I'm probably not good at the latter. So I was a little concerned about how would be the best and most effective way to understand all these changes. And primarily my concern was a lot of strikeouts.
Well, I'd like to bring this to conclusion, but I'm not set on bringing it to conclusion tonight. If there's still outstanding questions, I want to see all of them. So I would suggest if you have a list, put together a list that you could present to the city attorney and the city manager, and I can review that with them on Thursday and figure out and bring it back for further discussion.
Is it possible to have a meeting with you and to go over all these rather than me type up a one-page document?
Sure. I'm willing to do that.
Would that be okay? That would be my preference, not the group tonight.
Okay.
Thank you.
Council comfortable with that?
Any of the council members might want to sit in on? Can they sit on that?
Only if there's two
Oh,
others.
there's two others.
So
Yeah.
one other.
One other. Than each other. So
I count as one.
that's right. You're full.
At least here I count as one, not at home.
Mayor,
So hearing no other questions, we'll do that. I'll work with Councilmember Steckler to sit down with him and
I'll make
grant
myself
it to the
available.
city manager. And we can try to get his questions answered.
I'm happy to also be available to answer any of those questions. What we've got here in this final document is really a roll-up of the work that was done in the 3 or 4 sessions that preceded it. So this shouldn't look, other than some formatting and textual and grammatical changes, it should look pretty familiar in terms of the changes, having seen them before. But we're happy to polish it up and answer any questions that you have outside of the council meeting too, Councilmember Steckler.
Yeah, I want people to be comfortable and something might come out of this that we need to bring up with the full council. So let's do it right. Okay, moving on to item F, addendum number 3 to contract 2019-1504 with OTAC for professional services.
Thank you, Mayor. What we're going to ask the council for is an authorization for me to sign and execute on the addendum number 3. I asked our planning team to present the details of that agreement. It's an addendum. Got some deadlines that we want to make sure we're able to meet. And we just wanted to be transparent and bring that to council without just signing it on our own. So without further ado, Tom, if you could take it away, I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Caravino. Can you all hear me? My headset went out, so I'm doing it the old-fashioned way. Yes, so that we have hired OTEC back in May of 2019, which seems like a long time ago. And the work was supposed to be done in April of 2020. And this is the Mill Creek Boulevard Subarea Plan. And what happened, the pandemic happened and the work did not get done. So we extended the contract several times. The last time it was extended until May of this year. And the council did that, I believe, last October. And we still are not done. One of the things that we had pushed to have it done by the end of May was we were concerned about the funding from the state running out with the biennium and the financial difficulty that we were looking at that time with the COVID impacts to the revenues of the state. Well, the federal government has backfilled those revenues, and so that really isn't an issue. And so the city or the state still has the money available, so that timeline isn't as important anymore. And so what we've done is there's a schedule that's in your agenda summary, is we are proposing to amend the contract so it doesn't end at the end of this month, but it could go until the end of the year. The schedule that's attached shows it being done by the end of October, which I think is very feasible. We have one more meeting with the PAC, and then we'll be coming back to the city council to work on the next steps. So the schedule is also in your packet. So we're recommending, there's also a resolution that's attached, which would be the formal action that we had asked for tonight. And it's also important to note that the amount of money for the contract is not changed by the addendum. So that's the end of my presentation. Be glad to answer any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Rogers?
Just a quick question.
Councilmember Cavallari.
Thanks, Mayor. So Tom, this doesn't change any of the nuances to the contracts, it just extends the timelines, correct?
That is correct.
Thank you. Be happy to make that motion at some point, Mayor.
You can make it now if you like. You can simply say so moved.
So moved.
Second.
I think the Mayor Pro Tem got to the finish line with that second first, so. Any further discussion on the motion to approve the contract amendment as proposed? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Did anyone abstain? Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you very much.
I'm sorry. Thank you, Tom.
You're welcome.
Okay, on new initiatives, I'm going to deal with GH&I before I go to Councilmember Cavallari. And H&I kind of prompted me to add G. H is the request we heard from Ms. Callahan for the proclamation from the city on Alzheimer's and dementia. And then I is a proposed proclamation that Councilmember Cavallari has brought forward on Asian Heritage Month. And as we were discussing those last week, Mayor Pro Tem and myself and the city manager, it dawned on me, I've never understood who determines what the city finds important to issue proclamations. So I wasn't expecting a lengthy discussion other than to highlight the issue that I'd be bringing to the council. And work with Naomi to put together a list of what we've traditionally done in the way of proclamations, because I thought it was awkward that it's not for me and Stephanie to decide what we proclaim. It's not for the city manager to determine. So I want to have that discussion amongst us. With that said, we do have 2 proposed proclamations in front of us for consideration. So I guess the way with the first one, the item H, is there any comment, question, objection? I don't think we need I'm going to look to Grant, who's prominently displayed on our screen, of whether or not we need a formal motion to approve a proclamation to be read.
No.
Okay. Hearing none and hearing no objection, let me just preface by saying is Ms. Callahan where on the screen? Oh, I see her there. I very much appreciate your comments. I have a 91-year-old father dealing with my 85-year-old mother who's been struggling with dementia. It's challenging. It was tough to hear last night when I was visiting her and someone asked her, how many children do you have? And I have one sister and she says, oh, I don't know. I think I have 4 or 5 kids. So this is real. It's hard to deal with. It's very challenging. So with that, I will read the proclamation. Whereas Alzheimer's disease, the most common form of dementia, is a progressive and degenerative brain disorder that causes memory loss and affects self-care, decision-making, and behavior. And whereas there are 120,000 Washingtonians now living with Alzheimer's disease, and current projections indicate this rate will increase to 140,000 individuals by 2025. And whereas there are currently 295,000 unpaid caregivers providing 426 million hours of support to their loved ones with Alzheimer's disease each year, valued at $9.6 billion annually. And whereas dementia is a leading cause of death in Washington state and the only leading cause of death in the country, with no known treatments to prevent, cure, or even delay the onset or the slow progression of the disease. And whereas with early detection and diagnosis, individuals and families can gain access to medications and support services which promote quality of life, fully participate in planning for the future, and enroll in critical research trials. And whereas the city of Mill Creek recognizes the efforts of the Alzheimer's Association to promote awareness of Alzheimer's disease and other dementias and provide care and support to all those affected, thereby improving the quality of life for individuals living with dementia and their caregivers. And whereas annually, on the summer solstice, the Alzheimer's Association hosts the Longest Day, an event dedicated to shining a light on the darkness of Alzheimer's and dementia, in which teams around the world come together to honor the strength, passion, and endurance of people impacted by the disease. And whereas it is important to recognize the stories, strengths, and efforts of the individuals, families, friends, and caregivers impacted by dementia, as well as the tireless work of the researchers who are seeking a cause and a cure. Now, therefore, I, Brian Holzclaw, City of Mill Creek Mayor, do hereby proclaim June 20th, 2021 to be, in our city of Mill Creek, the longest day. I see Councilmember Bond's hand up. Thank you, Ms. Callahan, for bringing this to our attention for our consideration. Councilmember Bond.
Thank you, Ms. Callahan. Appreciate you bringing it to our attention. In 2019, I lost my father to cancer, but for 5 years prior to that, I was mostly losing him to Alzheimer's. In a twisted way of looking at the world, the death by cancer was a blessing because the future wasn't very bright for my dad. Some of the older folks that I've interacted with, including my mother, feel that Alzheimer's is viewed as a older person's disease, and therefore it's neglected to get the attention that by the majority of the population is fixated on other issues and other illnesses, all of which are important as well. But I really appreciate the proclamation and take the time to recognize this and the seriousness of it. The folks that are tasked with caring for a loved one who's struggling with this disease is very overwhelming. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Councilmember Stecker, did you have a?
Wait till.
Okay. On to the next item. Councilmember Cavalieri, do you want to speak to your proposed proclamation?
Thank you, Mayor. Really quick. Thank you for those words, Councilmember Bond, as well. I remember you going through that, and having had to live through that myself with my wife's dad, it's as you said, it's, I don't even have words. I'm going to let yours echo through. I'm glad the mayor brought this up about proclamations. As you know, over the years, I've introduced several or brought several forward. It's, I guess, when the mood strikes you or the emotion hits you. You know, I always feel as a councilor, I love the autonomy to bring it forward. And this time I asked the mayor and I asked the city manager to give me a little latitude in crafting this one. As many of you know, I have my spouse, my children are Asian American, Pacific Islanders, and some of the things that they've experienced in this life, you know, maybe not having them so close to me, I would not have known. So bringing this proclamation forward meant a lot to me to even have this dialogue, knowing 20% of our community is Asian Americans. And sometimes with recent headlines, you just simply have to shine the light on things. It's as simple as that. So thanks for allowing me to bring this forward, and I'll hand it to you, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Cavalieri. Mark, is your hand still up? Okay. One point of clarification, Councilmember Cavalieri and I talked about the proclamation. I think we agreed that if there's no objection to it, the period would end after Pacific Islander Heritage Month, and then now there are 4 paragraphs.
That's correct, Mayor. Thank you for fixing that.
So with that, is there any objection to this proclamation? Hearing none, we take a drink of water first. Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month is a period for the duration of the month of May for recognizing the contributions and influence of Asian Americans and Pacific Islander Americans to the history, culture, and achievements of our United States. The first 10 days were chosen to coincide with 2 important milestones in Asian Pacific American history: the arrival of the United States of the first Japanese immigrants, May 7, 1843, and contributions of Chinese workers to the building of the Transcontinental Railroad, completed May 10, 1869. In 1992, the United States Congress expanded the observance to a month-long celebration. Recent hate crimes and acts of violence against Asian Pacific Islander citizens has caused and given us the opportunity to reflect on the biases that still exist in our society today. The city of Mill Creek is proud to recognize these culturally significant contributors to the cause of freedom and prosperity in our nation. Whereas Asian American and Pacific Islander heritage in the United States was celebrated in 1978 and was made into a month-long event in 1992. And whereas Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month seeks to honor and recognize the contributions of residents from Asia, India, and the Pacific Islands. And whereas today more than 21 million Asian American Pacific Islanders live in these United States and through their actions make America a more vibrant, prosperous, and secure nation. Whereas Asian American and Pacific Islanders have distinguished themselves as leading researchers in science, medicine, and technology, and set the pace for work ethic in our nation. And whereas tens of thousands of Asian American and Pacific Islanders have fought and continue to fight for the cause of freedom in the United States Armed Services, both past and present. And whereas Mill Creek's population is roughly 20% Asian American and Pacific Islander and includes devoted community members who serve as artists, business owners, educators, healthcare professionals, first responders, and other professional groups and personnel. And whereas while we celebrate the achievements and contributions of Asian Americans that enrich our history, society, and culture, We must also acknowledge the additional hard work and determination that individuals must put forth to be heard and seen, and that these additional efforts are a result of inequitable institutional and systematic injustices, such as those most recently manifested in racist attacks on Asian Americans during the COVID-19 pandemic. And whereas we, the city of Mill Creek, believe that injustices to any race, religion, color, or creed is detrimental to the cause of freedom and inclusion in our community, now therefore, we, the city of Mill Creek, Washington, do hereby proclaim the month of May as Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month. Thank you for bringing that to our attention. Thank you, Council. And I'm going to turn it back over to you, Council Calendar, for the last proposed new initiative.
Did Councilmember Steckler want to speak real quick on those last two things? I think that's what you wanted, correct?
I was just going to make a comment. I think the question started this out about proclamation guidelines. I think that's a great topic, and I was just going to suggest that quite possibly, since we haven't approved the governance manual, maybe we could add proclamation guidelines to the governance manual and make sure that we get that added before we approve it. And I think that's a great question. I think that has been ambiguous in the past, and it would be good to have some better guidelines.
Yeah, when I anticipated we would be adopting the guidance manual, I was thinking we may do an addendum to the guidance review of proclamation.
That you didn't count on somebody like me slowing the process down.
I should have anticipated.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
You're welcome.
Councilmember Cavallari, supporting economic recovery for local businesses.
Thank you, Mayor. And again, I'll be really brief with this. This is a kind of brief down and dirty proposal of, I've been approached by several stakeholders in the local community and town center and some of the other business centers in the local community. And one of their questions, and continues to be, and this just happened again this week, is what is the city planning to do? What is the city going to do? How are we going to help small business? How are we going to help landowners in our community? And so I came up with a couple of ideas, and while I'm not going to go into the substantive nature of them, because I think that's better reserved for a kind of ad hoc committee or group to get together. What they really want is a face-to-face and an opportunity to meet some of the leaders in the community and have these discussions. And I think it would behoove us to hear from them. I think to hear what they want, hear their needs, and how we can help. I think it would be extremely helpful. I've reached out to Mayor Pro Tem Vignal and Councilmember Morgan, and we've just had a couple of preliminary discussions. And my hope is that, perhaps we can put a group together, and I'm hoping that we take the pulse of the council here and agree that this is probably going forward, especially getting through the back end of COVID. It's really an opportunity for us to get out there and really see what our future is going to look like and what we can do to help shape it. So that's the brief summary there, and I'm happy to field questions or pass it to anybody else.
Vince, is this in the context of the ARPA, the American Rescue Plan Act, and how we implement it, or is it more broad than that?
That's part of it. I had heard some suggestions from some of the local folks about how they talked about tax breaks and incentivizing small businesses and what we can do to incentivize new ownership. I don't have those ideas penciled out, but I believe they do. And so I believe they're just looking for a forum and an opportunity.
I don't know what others' thoughts are, but we struggled a little bit trying to come up with what our plan was last fall and how to use the initial funds, and I'm not sure we solicited any direct input. Is there any objection to working with the city manager to figure out how we can get some forum? Councilmember Steckler?
Well, that's interesting you bring this up, because it was on one of my topics to add in my report, so it ties right into it. And I know that I saw on the agenda that our finance director is going to talk about the ARP, but I think that is probably the most important subject matter that we talk about what we're going to do to help the local businesses. And we're looking at, from a city standpoint, an unprecedented amount of money that's become available to us. We're paying in excess of $4 million for the city of Mill Creek. The $65 billion that Biden is putting into all the states and cities across the country is a huge amount of money. I think what's important is what we do with that, and one segment of that, my finance director will speak to that, is that it's earmarked for local businesses and nonprofits that have been adversely affected by COVID. So when we talk about meeting with these businesses, we're going to have funds available. We're going to have funds available to help them, but we need to come prepared to meet with them, knowing what the guidelines are. We need to know what the guidelines are from the federal government, as to how those funds can be, what they need to do to qualify for it. And I would say, so my suggestion before you ever talked, Councilman Cavallari, which is great, was that this is coming up, and I think it's so important. And before you saw our finance director was on the agenda, that I think it's time for us to put the ARP on our agenda going forward as a city council. And every meeting we should have an update on it. We should be following up, making sure we know what's going on. The CARES money, when they came, was a big deal, and we worked really hard on that in a very short period of time. We need to try and get ahead of it this time, make sure we're pushing for information. We're actually pushing to find out when's it going to come. Has it hit the state yet? Because it's going to hit the state first, it's going to hit county second, then it's going to hit us. We need to get ahead of that curve. But I think your suggestion, Councilman Cavallari, the sooner we can get those requirements, the sooner we can sit down with local businesses and say, there is money available to help you. There are requirements to get it. But if you can meet these requirements, we can help you to get this money to help your business or your nonprofit. The churches and other ones have also adversely affected. Another nonprofit groups that unions, as a matter of fact, that need help, getting out. There's all sorts of opportunities here. That money is available. It's millions of dollars for our little tiny city. So I think it's a great idea. I just think we need to move, get expedite, and I'm sure the finance director will speak to it. But I was going to ask and make a request that if possible, we add the ARP to our agenda going forward. Every meeting, if we don't have an update, we say no update. But it actually kind of reminds everybody top line, let's keep checking, and we'll be ahead of the curveball when that money starts coming available. I don't know, it may have hit the state already, I don't know. But that would be my suggestion. I think it's a great idea. I worry about them telling us what they want and us not being able to deliver it because of federal guidelines or something like that. I think they would be happier if we could tell them what do they need to do to grow their business, to qualify for this money to grow their business. That would help them. I think they give them what they're looking for. Just a suggestion. Now stop time.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, Councilmember Cavallari reached out to me about this, and I think one thing that's really important and what with his idea that he's bringing this forward is that in our form of government, it's a little complicated, I think, for business owners to have someone to know who they need to be talking to if they have concerns for their business and for ideas that they have. And the whole idea that Councilmember Cavallari has put forth that I am wholeheartedly in favor of is that we have a few of us that can actually go out there and be out there to talk to the business owners in the community and find out what do they need, what would they like to help to stimulate growth in our community. So I think, yes, Councilmember Steckler has some great ideas to it. To get back to what Councilmember Cavallari is bringing up is to actually have a few of us that are able to go out there and be the point piece for members or for business owners to actually know who to talk to voice their concerns, to bring back to the whole council.
Councilmember Morgan.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I believe these suggestions are absolutely wonderful. I think we do need to do something to propel our business community forward from the downturn that they recently experienced. Lump sum monies are a good source to do that, but it's not the only thing. We need to talk about the business climate, the environment for businesses, both existing and new ones that are coming into our city, on how they can thrive and how they can ensure that they have prosperous futures ahead as well.
Anyone else? Yeah. Councilman, your light was not.
Oh, maybe I didn't.
You are
It's lit over here.
You are running. Councilmember Bryce.
So I think this is a great idea as to where we need to hear from our business owners and anybody that's operating a business inside of Mill Creek.
I would love to hear them here. Give an opportunity for all of us to hear from them so we can hear everything that they have to say. And it's a part of public record for those parts that I guess may not need to be part of public record. Then we can go to maybe a smaller committee or something like that. But I think hearing, especially is coming to the climate, the business climate, and what challenges they may be seeing here. That may be one of the things in which, well, all of us ought to hear about that and try to help. Thank you.
I think I have a sense of the consensus of where we want to go, so we'll work with the mayor pro tem and I will work with the city manager on making this a regular agenda item and come back with some ideas in the next meeting with how we might be able to get some of that input. Okay? Thank you for bringing that forward. Now on to the consent agenda. Item K, approval of checks number 63354 through 63405. And ACH wire transfers in the amount of $196,106.14. Audit committee was Councilmember Bond and Mayor Pro Tem Vignal. Any exceptions?
No exceptions.
No exception.
Item L, payroll and benefit ACH payments in the amount of $249,390.47. Any exceptions?
No exceptions.
No exception.
And city council meeting minutes of May 11th, 2021. Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move adoption of the consent agenda.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Did anyone abstain? The consent agenda is approved 7-0. Under reports, I've got several items we need to discuss tonight. One I included in your packet because I thought it was informational. This was an end of session report that the lobbyists for the county provided to the county council a couple weeks ago. I thought it was very comprehensive. And it shows you the breadth of issues that representatives and senators down in Olympia have to deal with. So hope you had a chance to take a look at that. The mayor's meeting last week, or this week, just yesterday, focused on what we are doing tonight. We're ahead of the curve. I think we're one of the first cities in Snohomish County to be hosting live meetings. Most other cities are in the process of figuring out when to open up. There's some are targeting June 1st, some are targeting after the 4th of July. But I believe we're the first to go forward with live meetings. And I will say in the past mayor's meetings, what we just discussed was a big topic of discussion. All the cities are struggling how to support their businesses and how to use the federal dollars that are coming our way. So we're not unique in that. So as I get more information from those mayor's meetings, if there's any insightful information, I'll bring that forward to us. Two more. One is need a little bit of a consensus head nod. As you know, we tried to do a farmer's market in 2019 with some ups and downs and some successes and some challenges. And we had decided, I believe, to mothball it before COVID in 2020, take a step back. Representative Berg approached myself and Mayor Pro Tem. We had a meeting today with representatives from the county. The county has a long-term goal of developing a permanent facility somewhere in McCollum Park for a permanent farmers market. It's the example they use. I don't know if any of you are familiar with it. I've been using the Pybus Market in Wenatchee. In the short term, they're not looking at doing something regular in 2021, but they're looking at doing one or two what they're calling harvest markets. And so they have approached us to see if we would be interested in participating with them. They would be held at McCollum. And we don't have any details yet. The concept is that we would share in the cost of the consultant that would be hired to organize and run the two events. So for instance, I believe we paid a consultant to run our events in 2019, and we carried 100% of that cost. So the concept is wanting to know if we're interested in talking further and see if we can get something. I think the idea would be to possibly have one in the late summer and one in the early fall. So August, October timeframe, dates, times, day of the week to be determined. But I told them I'd bring it forward, get a consensus if this is something they want us and staff to explore further. So this would just be for 2021 and see where we go from there. So,
I love the idea.
okay. We will carry forward with that. And the last item is just to talk briefly about schedule. We've got 3 important issues to deal with in the coming months. We have the DRCC, which is Karen is shepherding us through. And we've discussed possibly having some retreats or study sessions focused on that. The police chief is now 6 months in, is starting to assemble some recommendations and information for where the police department's at, where he sees us going, and suggestions that he may have for going forward. So I think that's going to take up over the coming months, several study sessions to provide us information, and so that we later in the year can make decisions as needed on any changes we make that may impact the budget. And then the third thing is probably more pressing is Michael's review. And so I guess starting with the review, I would like, and I want to make sure we're all on the same page, and we use Karen again, Karen Reed, who facilitated the review last year. We had a process established last year for doing the review. Is there any objections to using Karen going forward to do it again this year?
I have no problem with using Karen, but I would like to have a discussion about the process.
We're not talking, yeah, the intent was, we'll put up a schedule in a minute. If we're comfortable with her working with us, the idea would be that one of our next meetings should bring to us the process that we used last time to have a discussion and come to consensus on that. And she has a proposed schedule that would have us completing the review by the end of July. And so I think the question that I want to throw out there is we're also trying to work in some dates for retreats or study sessions to deal with DRCC, and I want to get everyone's thoughts on that. I know my schedule with summer weekends is pretty booked, and so I'm assuming it's hard for others too to commit Saturday to 6 hours of time to do a retreat. I'm wondering if we would be better suited finding a couple, maybe Thursday evenings to do study sessions that would be dedicated to that. And it doesn't have to be in July. I don't know if there's any appetite to do one in August, or we could also push them off into September. But those are the 3 items we have coming down the pipe. And first and foremost is we want to get the review done, so we keep on the schedule. We got it done in August last year. We're going forward, can keep it at the same time. Set up, hopefully institutionalize the process that we hadn't had before.
Out of respect for our council members who have full-time jobs, I think the first question is, are there any particular days or times that they can't do? And then what are, some of us, myself, are much more flexible as to when I can make myself available. So I would be wide open to that anytime, day, night, weekends. For me, it's lazy, for other people, it's not as easy.
Well, let me put it to you this way. Are there any Thursday evenings in July that anyone would not be available if we did a study session from, say, 5 to 8 or 6 to 9? Is Thursday night's a bad night for you, Mark? What nights work best for your schedules?
Wednesday might be better for me if we have to pick a day. For me personally, try to make the Wednesday work, but if it's so on the Wednesdays I work, I get home at 6:30. But I do have every other Wednesday off, so if we get lucky with the Wednesday, it's a lot more open.
Can you get me or Michael those days so that we can, maybe what we can do, Michael, is get the dates from Councilmember Vaughn, and then we can come back next week with that schedule we've looked at and have a little more definition to it for everyone to look at.
And I'm not against if everybody was available. And I was the only one that wasn't available on a Saturday. If I have enough notice, I've in the past been open to taking a vacation day. It's not a problem for me, other than currently half my crew is off. With one guy's been off for months, so there's been some scheduling challenges at my work for the next couple of months. It's likely to continue.
Personally, Saturdays are gonna be a challenge for me right now. With high school graduations and kids going off to college. So it's gonna be tough, but would people be open to a meeting in August? It could be on a regular Tuesday night, would be just dedicated to a study session on one of the topics, maybe the DRCC.
That's a good idea. What about a Tuesday night off?
So long as it's only one Tuesday in August.
Yes, no, we're not doing, it would be only one.
I understand we traditionally take August off. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so if we only pick one, yeah, we could probably, I
Yes,
could probably
I'm
make that
sorry,
work.
yes, we traditionally have August off.
I was gonna, I was
There's
like,
been a few exceptions where we've had special sessions for one reason or another, but generally we take it off. So that's why I was asking if there's opposition or any objection to doing one meeting that month.
what about the third week and third Tuesday in July?
That's a possibility too. Subject to council.
And is this, just to clarify, DRCC or review?
Well, I'm trying to figure out availability so we can use those dates for whatever we
One,
can
yeah.
factor that into the schedule.
Was there any chance we could do either one in June? We had a.
Well, let us, with Mark's, with having the information we have from Mark, let us come back next week with a more specific schedule. We had one penciled out, but we had the retreat dates or the study sessions kind of not defined, so the information on what Wednesdays are available, we can come back next week with something more specific. Does that work? Okay. Thank you for that. And that was, I think that's all I had. Mayor Pro Tem, any reports?
Thank you, Mayor. I actually, the majority of the things that I have done the past few weeks were with you, and you have covered all those things. I would like to say, to just add, I'm excited about the idea of doing the Harvest Farmers Market. I think it's a great way to build community, and I'm really looking forward to it. And also looking forward to the future full-time farmers market coming up in Collin Park. And I did call into the chamber meeting this week. We had a great speaker. I will let Councilmember Steckler give a little more on that because he was also there and he knew the speaker. So I'll let him discuss that a little bit more. And that's all I have. Is there anything else you covered already? Thanks.
Councilmember Vaughn, any report tonight?
No.
Councilmember Steckler.
I had, it was interesting, a few things here. Right, the council meeting was excellent. The speaker was a growth strategist that they brought in to talk about his particular approach to how local businesses can grow. It was like a three-step process they could go through, and that the attendees found it fascinating, very helpful. And I'm thinking about some of the things like what Councilman Cavallari brought up. You know, there might be a chance to meet with businesses in the local community and listen to them. The question is, what can the council tell them? Because, you know, that's where it gets a little, what can we give them? Something like this could be a great asset to our community or an individual like that. But that was extremely, Martin Reamer is I met him in the media business back in 1980. And so it was interesting to meet him again on a Zoom call 8 years later, whatever. But he's did a great job on presenting that. The other topics I had, I just wanted to really love our meetings when you didn't see them on the agenda, but they were coming up. I wanted to ask about making sure we respect the city manager and his review, and thank you for bringing that up. I did want to bring up once again that the ARP, that money, American Rescue Plan, getting that on our agenda, I think will be huge for us moving forward. And I make sure that our attorney got the adding proclamation guideline to the governance manual. The last item that was not here, and the city manager, when you get ready to do your review, I'd love to get an update. Thank you on opening up passports to by appointment only. I got 3 emails from citizens saying, yay, great, got it, service is fantastic. Boom, boom, in and out, it was wonderful. Got some thumbs up from the audience. So it's going great. Thank you for making that happen. Could you give us an update on what is your plans for the reopening of the rest of City Hall? I couldn't remember from our last go around if your plan was to open at the end of May, but that would be next Monday. So I don't think that's going to happen since our last meeting. But maybe you give us an update on when you are proposed to reopen City Hall. And that was the
end of my comments. Thank you.
Councilmember Cavalieri, any report tonight?
Thanks, Mayor. No report, just real quick. Happy to see all 7 council members in chambers. This is exciting stuff. I think sometimes you have to make bold steps, and we are doing that, as well as I was going to give kudos. Councilmember Stecker stole my thunder as far as the passport office. Exciting stuff that we are the tiered or staggered opening is appropriate. It's working. I'm proud and thankful for all my coworkers, colleagues, and all the city staff that are putting forth the effort to establish a degree of normalcy in our community. Thank you.
Councilmember Burrows, any report tonight?
Yes, just a couple of items. I'm also excited about the farmer's market. I've been participating in the farmer's market in the past, teaching nutrition to some kids and about plants and how to feeds and a whole bunch of other stuff through Kiwanis there. It was really a lot of fun. Another thing was that we had one topic, one activity that was that continued from Service Day this last weekend, in which we finished planting a giant sequoia tree in Pine Meadow Park. We did complete that project, which was really a great one to get done. So I thought that was a great time. Thank you.
Councilmember Morgan, your report tonight.
Yes, I have a report. There was the RIA 8 meeting this past week. So they went over quite a bit. It was their budget meeting, so it was fairly in-depth and thorough. They updated us on the sockeye population, that it's continuing to dwindle, but they are making efforts to help that. One of the largest helps is the state upped their budget by about 25% for riparian efforts along there, mostly in King County, not so much up here. A couple legislation items passed, HB 1382, which had a streamlined salmon recovery permit process for permitting developments has to coincide with the salmon recovery efforts, and SB 5273, which removes state tax collection from grant funds in relation to salmon recovery. There is one item that they wanted to kind of bring up with fellow councils, and that was in regards to our interlocal agreements and what their budget will look like for the next fiscal year. They're asking for a 2.5% increase in the local agreement cost share. The good thing about it is no matter whether we give them an increase or not, it's still going to be less than the past 2 years. So they reworked their budget, they tightened their belt, and it seems Seattle's going to be paying a larger share, but smaller municipalities like ourselves will have a smaller bite of it. So personally, given their work and everything they're doing, I would recommend allowing them that increase of the 2.5%. We'll still be saving money in the long run, but it'll allow them to do the valid work they're doing.
It's less than the current COLA.
All right.
Is that something you need? Is there formal action we need to take? Or
No, head-nods would be fine, or shakes, depending on the point of view.
What is my point?
It'll need an amount, I think. So, which I have. So, we good with the 2.5% increase?
What is our usual annual contribution?
I don't have that number.
Last 2 years, it was 6,600 and change. And for, if we give them the increase, it'll be 6,500. So it's about $100 decrease. They increase their budget. They have many municipalities that they get money from. Our
Yeah, I'm not accepting a decrease at this point. I want to pay more.
So some of the, like Seattle is going to be paying a huge share more, but people like us are going to be paying less.
So what do they call the contribution?
What do they call it?
It's an ILA.
Oh, ILA.
What is it a fee? Do we have is it a new ILA or that we have to approve, or is it a fee under the existing ILA?
It's just under the existing one.
So would the motion be to approve is this for 2021 or 21/22? If we have it under the existing ILA, why do we need to approve it?
We don't.
Okay.
This is just to convey, so when I go to the next meeting to say we're okay with the increase or not. Before they submit it.
Why don't we table this to the next meeting?
Yeah, could you, Sam, Andrew, could you just look at the interlocal agreement to see what, if any, action we need to take? I mean, if we have an existing contract, I don't know if it contemplates adjustments automatically, so let's just bring it back and look at it. And we can just take care of it next week.
All right. That's it for my reports.
Thank you, Councilor Morgan. Before I turn it over to Michael for his reports, Michael, how long are you anticipating we're going to need for the executive session?
I think we can do it in less than 15 minutes.
Why don't we go ahead? I don't want to interrupt any of your reports because we have a couple substantive ones. So why don't we go ahead and extend the meeting to 9 o'clock?
Motion to extend the meeting to 9 o'clock.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Meeting is extended to 9 o'clock. Michael, take it away with your reports.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. A few questions I'll address before getting into the established agenda to speak to. We are actively monitoring action under the American Rescue Plan Act. As of this morning, the state had released any funding. We look forward to these conversations because I think it's important that we establish direction sooner than later so that those things that council would like us to look at even further, we can do this in a way that is less deadline sensitive. What we understand is there's going to be 2 separate releases of funding, and we should have sufficient runway ahead of time. On the agenda this evening, our finance director, Laurel Gimzo, is going to speak to the different categories just to get all of us thinking. I've also similarly already asked our administrative team to start reflecting on what it is we may want to be prepared for in terms of our recommendations. As we hear from council, we may be prompted in ways that we wouldn't otherwise. So we expect that our council and our policymakers are going to drive the priorities on this, and the things that we need to look up and follow up on, we will give that to you. We also have some thoughts of our own on it. These items that we will bring up at the appropriate time. With regard to the other question, and I'm really quoting from the proclamation or the extension of the proclamation that council voted on. First, as we know, we were already back in session, and we're really proud of being able to be one of the first in the area to do so. We first had an open to the public session with members of council participating on April 27th. Although our passport office and fingerprint services were planned and anticipated to resume by the end of this week, as you know, we were able to get the passport office humming ahead of time. We have a lot of data that's come out of that as far as a few no-shows on the appointments. We're by no means breaking even with how we're administering the passport office, but we're right now scheduling in 30-minute increments. Our past model had standing room only, and as soon as one stakeholder had finished conducting their business at counter, the next one was ready to begin. So to the extent we have gaps, we're really studying how to move forward. Many of you also noticed we have a automatic temperature check in the lobby. We're working on a sign that will allow for voluntary temperature checks. If a temperature either exceeds above or below a certain range, there'll be some sort of a light that would go off. We're doing this in a voluntary way as an additional safety measure for folks that are going to be entering the building. We're also strongly encouraging our staff as well to check in with that machine on a regular basis, just to make sure we're doing the most we can. Finally, reading from that extension of proclamation that City Council authorized, we're planning to be fully reopened by June 28th, with all staff resuming employment on site, with certain exceptions subject to state laws and the positive public health track. So that's the game plan that we're currently slated for. With regard to Memorial Day, this has really been a celebration of it goes beyond what we had envisioned would have been possible for this year. First of all, the Veterans Memorial literally sparkles. The way in which it's been cleaned up and prepared for this weekend, we should all be proud of that, because we honor those who have made the ultimate sacrifice, including their families. What we worked with this year was a city volunteer, community volunteer, a City Mill Creek resident, Mike Kidd, who is a retired Navy captain with 30 years service. He's a former regional commander for the Naval Reserve Forces in the Northwest. What he brought to the table, which you'll see in this reverse parade this year, are the memorial boards. These boards capture personal narratives of sacrifices that have been made by members of our community and beyond. And we are looking to have these cited at various locations throughout the community. Thus far, we've had the following that have agreed to have memorial boards located at their place of business, which includes Banner Bank, Columbia Funding Mortgage, First Financial Northwest Bank, Paddywhack, People's Bank, Starbucks in the Mill Creek Town Center, and Frost Donuts. The commemoratives, so the events beginning on May 31st will help the community honor those who made the ultimate sacrifice. Our commemorative ceremony will air on our city's website and Facebook page at 9 a.m. on May 31st. This is a pre-recorded ceremony which will be originated at the Mill Creek's Veterans Monument at 15429 Bothell Everett Highway. The ceremony is pre-recorded to comply with the whole myriad of different requirements that we had planned for before these latest announcements. Following our online ceremony, the reverse parade is going to take place on Main Street between 155th Street Southeast, also where the Cold Stone Creamery is, and the 153rd Street Southeast corner, which is formerly where the University Bookstore is. There will be a display of military memorabilia, and it'll be available for public viewing from 10:30 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. Part of what's come out of this work with the memorial boards is a lot of conversation in the community amongst various veterans, some of which have expressed a positive interest in volunteering in future Memorial and Veterans Day events. I come with a bias from another area where we've done this on a volunteer basis, and not only is it part of the healing for many members that served and know people that made the ultimate sacrifice, but it helps build a sense of community and spirit around both the Memorial and the Veterans Day events. I cannot thank our internal team as well as my kid for the energy, the fresh new ideas that right now are primarily from our staff and volunteer driven. So we look forward to honoring those again who made the ultimate sacrifice for Memorial Day, and then we're looking forward to being able to build out a more celebratory Veterans Day event that we're already making plans for into November. With regard to the graduation senior parade, our sign-up website is now open for students to register their vehicles. If you go to the signupgenius.com website, you can locate it. We're also going to republish those links in our social media. Currently, 54 cars are registered. And there's also a sign-up website through the same signupgenius.com site for parents to volunteer to help the day of the event. The website and again, this theme of volunteerism, the website and the parent volunteers are currently being managed by another parent volunteer. And I believe this was an individual, Mrs. Gobliowski, probably mispronouncing the name, but who came and spoke and offered to volunteer a number of council meetings ago. She has stepped up to help us managing the volunteer portal for that website. The city's website is also updated with a waiver to be signed for the driver and all passengers. We're also providing traffic reminders and other event details. We are not at this point, although we're not able to confirm which police departments will be assisting, we are still working with area police departments. And I also have requested assistance from the South County Sheriff's Office and other area police agencies. Chief Young is also working to contact Seattle's Finest as a standby contingency in case we don't have sufficient officers that can help direct traffic on the day of the event. We're also working and coordinating. Kristen Rasmussen is working to coordinate with the police chief as well as the public works team. The public works supervisor, Matthew Combs, is going to be coordinating with WashDOT and Snohomish County to have support for all the traffic signalizations during the parade event. Snohomish County has indicated they will have someone on site to help set traffic signals. Although they flash and ensure that they're back and operational afterwards. They'll also have a technician on call and available. We're following the template that we did from last year, getting this where we need to. In order to prepare for the event, our team indicates that they will finalize their plans and hope to not make any changes to these plans after June 3rd. So we're working to get these two events up and running. And again, the way in which our administrative team, managers, supervisors, directors, police chiefs work together is something that we can all be proud of moving forward.
Michael,
Yes.
is it possible to get that link for the parade on our website? As I think a lot of people are going there to look for it.
The link is on the website now, I'm informed.
Yeah, I'm looking at the website right now and I don't see it.
Okay, I will double check on that, Councilman Speckler. If you would, that'd be great. Appreciate the checks on this. So with that, I'm going to turn the mayor's permission over to our finance director, Laurel Ginzo, to talk about the Rescue Plan Act, as well as an update regarding our passport office's trial opening this past week. Ms. Ginzo?
All right, good evening, council. I was actually just going to hit passports first. It sounds like you guys kind of stole the thunder. We did have passport services open last Monday on the 17th. And when we opened our appointments up, we had 123 appointments fill in under 4 hours. So we do have more staff than previous years to help with the demand right now. We had 2 new technicians join us in the last couple weeks. We are the only city in the county at this time processing passports. So the post office is also doing passports, but we were told that they were fully booked for the next 3 months. So we are doing passports, but we're only opening appointments up for the next week. And if you are needing a passport, you just go to our city website and you can click the passport tab. And then there is a link that'll take you to schedule your appointment. And then it'll just ask you all the questions. You'll have to verify that you have specific documentation that we will need to process your passport. So if there are no appointments available when you visit the website, don't get discouraged. Every Tuesday at 10 a.m., we do open the next week for appointments. So it does sound like that window is getting smaller and smaller as more people hear about us. But I do want to thank the staff for their flexibility as we work through the nuances of moving to appointment-based services to keep everyone involved safe. All right, so with that, I think I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Let's go here. And I'm going to touch on the American Rescue Plan Act. Can everyone see my screen? It says funding objectives.
Yes.
Okay, so we're not going to get final guidance on the ARPA until about mid to late July. So right now there are a lot more questions than answers. Washington cities are going to get $1.1 billion for 281 cities. And so half of that funding is going to come in 2021, and then it's going to come, the other half will come a year later. Funding is going to be available until December 31st of 2024. So this is not going to be as rushed as the CARES Act. So we're going to want to make sure we're not duplicating services. So if the county is offering utility assistance, the city offering utility assistance isn't going to be as beneficial to our businesses. So that's just one thing to keep in mind. So we're going to really want to focus on communicating with our state and our county partners so that we're all working together in this. We are a non-entitled city. So right now we're the lucky ones that don't have any idea what money we're getting now. So initial estimates came based on the census, and we were expecting about 4.5 million, But since then, the Treasury has stated that for sure the estimates that were given are not correct, and they have not given, it's been mum's the word on how much non-entitled cities are getting. So we are waiting to hear from the state, and I have not heard anything from the state on whether or not they've received their funding. So the state will have up to 60 days to, after they receive funding, to get us our funding. But at this point in time, until the state reaches out and says, hey, this is what you get, we're not going to know. So we're still in limbo. So from that, I'm just going to point out on funding objections or objectives, this is really what we have from Treasury right now. So they really want funding to respond to the COVID-19 pandemic. They want funding to replace lost, delayed, or decreased revenues due to COVID. So these are technicalities that will matter. They do want it to address the negative economic impacts on local businesses and nonprofits. And then they want to make necessary investments in water, sewer, and broadband infrastructure. And they did have enough cities reach out that they have gone ahead and added stormwater to that list of approved investments. So anything that is a management or treatment of stormwater or subsurface drainage water does qualify. So I do know we have some aging infrastructure that would qualify. So from that, I do want to touch on some things that we do know from the guidance we've received so far that does not qualify. So at this point in time, any kind of principal or interest payment on debt service is not something this funding will qualify for. They do not want this money to go toward reserves for rainy day funds. And then it cannot go for any large pension deposits. And then it cannot be the city's non-federal match on other federal projects. So if a federal project requires you to have 10 or 20%, this money cannot be considered that match. And then lastly, I only note this because someone mentioned tax breaks. The guidance specifically noted the funding cannot delay tax increases or spending funds to reduce taxes. They did note that for states and territories, they were not explicit in local governments, but with the guidance being the middle ground right now, we don't have a final rule. More than likely, local governments, that restriction could flow over. We are working through guidance and restrictions on recouping the lost revenues the city's experienced. The guidance does not require revenue loss to be tied to source by source revenue. So the city cannot say, hey, we lost passport revenue. We do have to go with our overall annual revenue loss. So if the sales tax increase that offset passports is something that's going to have to be considered. And then there's a lot of technicalities that are going to come if we want to use the city's revenue loss as an expense. So I do know a lot of cities are asking, hey, if we do ask for this revenue loss to be considered, is there going to be more stipulations on how that money is spent? So at this point in time, we're just waiting on more information there. And hopefully we'll have information on spending restrictions in the coming weeks. So any COVID-related expense between March 3rd and December 31st, so March 3rd, 2021 and December 31st of 2024 will qualify. So if it is related to COVID, it will qualify. And then anything that would have qualified for CARES will qualify for ARPA. That's pretty much the only solid guidance we've gotten. So to summarize, the city is waiting for information from the state on how much funding will be received and when we're going to get that funding. There are still more questions and answers, and the city will provide updates as they become available. Finalized guidance on funding restrictions is expected in mid to late July. So we still have some time before we're going to know exactly how things can be spent. And then I would say lastly, if you have ideas for funding, I think with the next few meetings, that's going to be helpful. But if you just would get with the city manager or myself, I can submit any kind of questions or ideas to Treasury, because they are taking questions and comments up until July 16th, I believe. So they can give that information in the guidance and they can include that. And I think that is everything I've got. If anyone has any questions, I'm happy to answer what I can.
I have a question.
Okay.
I'm looking at your sheet. You just moved it. I was looking at your document you had in front of us here. Can you see the thing?
You want me to go back? Here we go.
There you go. Thank you. You know where it says replace lost public sector revenue to strengthen support for vital public services? So we did have a reduction in revenue. I'm just wondering, is there, and I think I kind of asked this of our state representatives, and I don't know if this is, it sounds like this is rather fluid, things are changing as they go along. Is there any opportunity to go back and ask the government if can we get any support for any of the projects that we're looking at paying for in the DRC properties, whatever they may be? They are public projects, whether they be fields or boys, girls clubs or theaters or whatever they are. And is there any way this money can be used to, or a portion of it could help to offset some of our expense in building these things?
It would depend on who is going to benefit the most, but I would say we would have to work through logistics of that, and possibly I know that's not a super solid answer, but depending on if underserved communities are impacted by this,
Understood.
if we could prove that, then yes, we could put money toward that.
Key one is underserved. Okay.
Yeah, so that would be the key.
Yeah, I can see that. All right, thank you.
And then I'm just gonna scroll this down real quick so that these are just some ideas that they provided on different public health responses and different ideas. So any kind of mental health assistance, human services, and they do allow premium pay for even our businesses. So if we have essential workers, so like Central Market and the different grocery stores, their essential workers would qualify for premium pay, and we can help them pay up to $13 over whatever their standard pay is, with a cap of, it was, I believe, 23 or 25,000 annually per person. The other thing is water, sewer, broadband, and stormwater, but we will have to follow the EPA's clean water or drinking water revolving loan fund criteria. So if our projects follow the requirements for the revolving loan fund, then we could have a stormwater project qualify there. And then broadband, they're pretty specific on speeds and providing services where there are none. And then they just note some ineligible uses here.
Michael, could you circulate this to the council so we can all do on it? I don't think this includes as part of the pack.
Yeah, and I do have copies of that on my desk that I can bring by at the end of the meeting.
Great. Thank you.
You can also post them on, get one set so we can put it on our website as well, please.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for the update.
Any further questions? We have an exciting announcement that Director Mike Todd is going to make regarding the hiring of our new city engineer. We started this past Monday. Director Todd?
Yes, thank you. Laurel, would you unshare your screen, please?
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to do, and it's gone. Oh, here we go.
I can fix.
Sorry, I was like, I can't get it. Okay.
Okay, so I'm gonna, a couple of announcements first. So I'll try to make this quick. As of yesterday, we have a new city engineer. Mr. Frank Reinhardt has started with us as of yesterday and is already drinking from the fire hose, and we are enjoying him a lot. He comes to us with over 20 years of experience in the public sector and the private sector as an engineer with lots of different technical capabilities. He started off as a geotech engineer and did a lot of things in the environmental arena, has worked for Kirkland, Issaquah, the State Department of Ecology. He has a lot of experience, particularly at Kirkland, with managing capital projects and helping out with a lot of things stormwater. So I am so excited to have not only a great city engineer that can help us manage projects, but also to have this deep and broad experience in the technical arena for stormwater that can help us out. Frank and I will be looking at the resumes that have been coming in for project engineers and surface water people and deciding how to fill out that team. But I wanted to take those promising resumes we already have and work with him to make sure it fits in his team and he builds that out. So we're excited about that. There will be a press release going out tomorrow with some more information about Frank to the newspapers. And we've already announced him to our county partners, our partners at the Department of Ecology and our partners at the water districts. So we'll continue to get him out there. You'll get a chance to meet him in a future meeting. Longtime employee now is Justin Horn, who started a week ago Monday. He was able to overlap with Sherry Ringstad. You may have heard that Sherry very quietly wanted to retire. She did retire, but we got them to overlap one day, a week ago Monday. So Sherry departed from the associate planner / building permit coordinator position, and Justin came in and took that over. Been a great first week and a day with him, catching on very quickly. He comes to us with a new new planning degree, urban planning degree from Arizona State University, but he also has a bachelor's in history from UW. And we'll let you tell his, we will let him tell you the rest of his story some other time, but it involves a stay in China and doing some teaching over there. So it's kind of a fun past background. So we're very excited about those two new people on the staff. It's starting to buzz in here instead of me just by myself and people occasionally. We now have some other employees, so it's kind of like a real workplace. So we're looking forward to coming back and working from the office by the end of this month. And the last one, I'm going to share my screen real quickly. This came to my notice real recently, and I just want to let you know, can folks see my screen there about upgrading your equipment?
Yes, we can.
So this is Puget Sound Energy. We'll be sending this out. The information is that if you have Puget Sound Energy gas, they will be coming to your house and changing out your meter, upgrading that meter sometime in June is what they have threatened. I think they're starting in June. It may take a few weeks because this is the entire Mill Creek city limits plus some areas south of us and a little bit west of us as well. And this letter will go out to people a couple of weeks ahead of when this happens. They will then have a reminder phone call that goes out to everybody. There will be an email that goes out if people have signed up for that, and there will be a courtesy door knock on the day of the event. And so their objective is to make sure your gate isn't locked, make sure the pets are put away, keep social distancing, do everything safely. This is kind of a routine thing, but they wanted to let people know that this is coming. It's their responsibility to let the customers know, but I had the opportunity to get this kind of advanced copy of this letter. So this is, people will be receiving this when it's their turn to have this upgrade happen. And with that, I will turn it over to questions. Thanks, Council.
Any questions? I forgot to mention, both Mayor Pro Tem and I had the opportunity to pop in on Ms. Ringstad's impromptu going away party. And so I was glad to be able to attend that, and we got to meet Justin, welcome him to the city team, and look forward to meeting Mr. Reiner. I see him on page 2 of my screen, so One of these days, we'll see him either virtually or in person. So welcome aboard. Audience communication, before we go to executive session, I would like to speak to the council. Mr. Nelson was quick to the draw. Oh, it's prompted me out of mute. Can you hear me, Naomi?
Yes,
Okay.
I just unmuted you, Mr. Nelson.
Go ahead, Will. Name and address in 3 minutes, please.
Sir Nelson, if you could lower the volume of your computer. Actually, I stand corrected. I don't know if that works. Joe, what's your direction there?
Is that better?
I think one of the council members unmuted their device.
Oh.
Where do we sit?
Councilmember Morgan, can you mute yourself? Let me try to do it. Let's see.
I'm not hooked up to audio.
Oh, you're not?
Well, Mr. Nelson, can you try again, please?
Okay, how are we doing here? Can you hear me?
Very good. Thank you.
Okay. Couple comments. Mr. Rogers' comments on how the businesses were to be occupied at the farm is not in accordance with my recollection from several council meetings ago regarding the percent of businesses that were supposed to be occupied before the units could be occupied. I have missed a couple of meetings, but I do not recall that issue being discussed with council. It'd be interesting, rhetorically, it'd be interesting to know when that change was approved and how it was approved. And I believe he himself said that they rewrote that rule. So why wasn't that discussed at council, or am I in error? Anyway, rhetorically speaking. Very disappointing to hear that that building will be occupied by the tenants before the businesses are going full steam. Anyway, last comment. For those of you who don't know me that well, I served in the Vietnam War. I have been in combat. I was a combat commander for a bit. I was a captain in the US Army and a combat engineer. Just prior to that, I was assigned to duty stateside to do body escort and escort fallen soldiers to their homes for their burial. And while you're out tomorrow and over the weekend and on Monday, I would ask that you think about the sadness that I experienced in watching these families view their fallen sons. The mother's anguish, their inability to accept that their son was dead. As a consequence, I've had to do on-site body identification, agonizing over the smallest detail about their fallen soldier, their fallen son. The fathers sucking it up bravely as they viewed their fallen son in the coffin. So just wanted to mention that. I would hope you think about that on Monday. These were very sad experiences. Also that because of a couple of old men could not work things out, a lot of young men died. So I thank you for your time and good night.
Thank you, Will. Anyone else like to address the council? Hearing none, before we go to executive session, we said you needed 15 minutes. Can we extend the meeting to 9:15? Doesn't mean we go to 9:15.
Motion to extend tonight's meeting to 9:15.
Seconded.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion, meeting is so extended. So now the council will recess to executive session to discuss one item involving collective bargaining negotiations pursuant to RCW 42.30, 140 subsection 4, and to discuss litigation pursuant to RCW 43.12 and subsection 1 will I. No action will be taken following our executive session. So with that, we'll be adjourned for 15 minutes till the meeting at the bathroom break.
Always.
We'll be adjourned till what's 9:10. That'll give us a couple minutes to get started. Am I out for 15 minutes? Yeah, 9:10.
It's 8:53 now.
What?
It's 8:53.
8:55.
At 9:10, we're gonna take 2 minutes for bathroom break and 15 minutes for executive session.
This is my sunshine. My son, you know, just turned 10.
And then they can't hear us everywhere, right?
Once when Naomi puts you guys in the breakout rooms.
I can hear you guys.
So,
Laura, can you hear us?
Yes.
yeah, we're not in the breakout rooms
Yeah,
yet.
you're not. You're still in the regular meeting.
You hover down here.
Oh. So everybody's been hearing us?
No, we just.
back on.
I don't think I have enough.
No, we're
class,
not-
so
we're
I'll
not.
just figure out check next week, so.
No.
No video stuff.
Naomi there? Naomi there?
Yes, I'm here. Sorry about that.
Okay, no worries. Hi, Naomi. The council concluded its executive session at 9:10, and I will now adjourn the meeting. We'll see everyone next week.
All right, very good. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
That little guy is a soldier, hasn't said a peep, hasn't.
I know, I'm in front.